So just now I've realized that I haven't really been doing introductions for my videos, which is insane considering like how else are people going to know what the video's about that they're watching that they clicked on? So I figured I'd try to do that here. Where we're at currently is we've been responding to a particular video that just happens to be 11 minutes long. And the time it has taken me to respond to this in a way that I deem adequate has been astounding, and we're currently on part 3. Each episode has been about 2 hours long, and we've in total responded to about 4 minutes of it, not including what you're about to see. Meaning that's about 1 hour of response to each 1 minute of video. Personally, I didn't think this was possible, but here we are. I thought it was going to be 1 hour-long video. Anyways, the reason why I'm doing it in this format is to try to explain some concepts that I've been workshopping for over a good part of a year. And that's in actual writing and trying to explain them. These ideas have been existing in my head for a lot longer than that. But the reason why I'm trying to apply it is so that I can better explain it, simplify things, because as it stands right now, I have about 900 pages of very, very abstract notes on things that I've been trying to clarify for a considerable amount of time, and the progress is very slow. One thing that I've noticed is that attempting to apply it onto the real world, to use real world cases to make my stance, and then use this sort of philosophy to try to justify it, that has given me a lot more insight than actually trying to develop the idea actually has. So as it's not perfect, as it's still a work in progress, as most of the structure does not yet exist, this ongoing process will help me develop it. And that's why I encourage everybody watching this to give feedback, ask questions, and generally just try to interrogate me about this subject. I cannot explain it well right now. And that used to be an excuse for me as to not really answer people on the topic of what I'm working on. But I realized that's a problem that I'm trying to address in the philosophy itself to preach what you're attempting to practice. The internet there's no better way, no better place to be held accountable. So here we are. If I had to give a short, brief synopsis on what I'm working on, the title of the original book that I set out to write was called The Dead Man Marches On, and it is about the archetype of a type of person that goes through life without ever having lived. We hear about this a lot from a lot of different angles for a lot of different reasons. Nobody can seem to pin him down. So that is currently the sole purpose of my life at the moment. And just as a disclaimer, I'm trying to interpret these videos and things that I respond to as if they are the archetype that just the video represents. People can change, but the sort of an outlook, the mentality that is the dead man, can't. It's like a force that you fight throughout your entire life. It exists in all of us to some degree. It's basically the embodiment of all of the excuses that we make for ourselves. And it honestly makes me cringe a little bit how simple that seems in comparison to all of the work that I've done on developing the idea, but I'm going to have to bite the bullet on that one. I can't be hyper-specific in every situation possible. I mean, I kind of am. We're 4 hours into this project already, and that is edited down clips. 4 hours of solid speaking, trying to not be hyper-specific, and it will continue on. But the goal of all of this is to pursue the attempt to gain a little bit of clarity, to simplify things so as to not lose the idea and maintain the comprehension, but to encapsulate it in as few words as possible to get the idea across. I'm fairly certain that one of the reasons why one of the reasons why I feel like new ideas don't come about very often is because of the sheer effort that it takes to tell people about them. Try explaining something to somebody that has never been structured before. I think it's one of the reasons why we have this perception that there are no original ideas, and you could say that about what I'm doing, and the idea that all of these ideas are just interconnected is totally true. However, putting ideas together in new ways for new reasons even still takes a considerable amount of time to reach the level where things actually click. And I'm not trying to necessarily introduce new ideas here. I'm simply trying to streamline the process of understanding for my own current beliefs, so then I can explain them more readily to people in a manner that I deem to be more accurate. If this goes the way that I think it will, just about every single video going forward will be able to be viewed in the light that the previous one was cringe and trash compared to it. That is the goal. And because you guys obviously don't mind long introductions, you probably, obviously, won't mind a long recap. Basically, an overview of the concepts that we've gone over vaguely in the last ones. I've added some specificity to these, but I'm going to give an overview so then I can still reference these ideas going forward without completely re-explaining them, and hopefully give some extra additional insight into each segment without the prior reiteration that would exhaust my brain to the point where I forget the additional point that I was trying to make. In no particular order, one of the things that the dead man does is he has a certain perspective, a certain outlook, a certain vision of the world that we all live in and experience. Personally, I believe that we all see the world as we like to see it, or as we don't like to see it, as will become clear. The dead man has a particular, very interesting propensity to pursue the world as it should be. He's got an idea of what he wishes the world was like, and he sees that particular world in his head in comparison to the one that we're already living in, as though there is a before and after photo, and we're in the before, and the after photo has been stolen from him. Stolen from all of us. It's always a world, it's always a fantasy world. A fantasy that is fairly undefined, unattainable. It is a world of sterile conceptions of vague values, principles, ideals, oftentimes ones that directly clash with each other. But because that world cannot be directly observed, we cannot see the conflict between those ideals. They are supposed to not exist. And because it is a sort of fantasy world, nobody can prove it otherwise. When people have problems and solutions, and the dead man usually has issues with both the problems and the solutions, they'll usually use this fantasy as something to point at. Because there's a problem, look at this monument of a fantasy, this monolith of a fantasy. Compare it to that. Look what it should be. Look what it could be. Look what it might be if you just thought the way that I did. And if there's a solution, they'll usually have a problem with it and use that same monolith of a fantasy and point at it and say, look what it could be instead. Look what will happen in comparison to what I have in my plans. Look what the outcome of yours is, and look what things could be instead. And the process usually keeps going back and forth until nothing ever gets done. Ironically, nowadays, there's a separate group of people that think that nothing ever happens. That's a chud meme. We've got that crowd out there as well. I think this is in response to a particular style of thinking, and sometimes even overlaps, potentially. I don't know. I don't try to look into internet archetypes too much, because what I find is that they are not very useful, generally, unless you're trying to make a meme about somebody. But in essence, the dead man has a very strong conception of the world as it should be, and that is the backbone to a lot of the ideas that he has in life. So on and so forth. Which goes nicely into the next topic, which is gods. What I call a god is not a man in the sky. It is not a benevolent creator and controller of everything, or some oneness with the universe, or guy. It's all of those things and more. It's what I attribute to everybody. I would say we all have this type of god. I just use this word because you can look at it and see it and say, yeah, that makes sense in this context. And what I define as a god is an idea that we believe to be self-evident. If we have to explain our own principles, the truths that we have, the things that we follow, the reasons for what we do, if we interrogate those very, very deeply, we'll eventually get to a point where we say, you know what, I really don't need to justify myself anymore. And we'll always reach that point, if only because things get incomprehensible, things contradict themselves. We run out of time, literally. That's what monks do. They run out of time. They spend their whole life investigating these threads and just run out of time. But for most of us, that level of depth that we're willing to go to justify ourselves and our existence is not that deep. Because like I said in one of the first videos I did, is that at some point we have to stop thinking about things and start living. Stop thinking about the way that we're living and start living. I don't believe that anybody can indefinitely think about their own philosophy, their own way in which they view the world. I don't think they can think about that forever and be happy. And I also don't think that they can avoid thinking about that and be happy, whatever happiness means to you, whether it's like contentment or just reconciliation with the world or infinite wealth, who cares? If we never do enough self-investigation to get the why, the reason why we're doing something, we'll never have the purpose. And then that time that we spend in life, it just gets very numb, meaningless, and then you have the symptoms that we discuss. And on the same end, you go all the way to the other side into intellectual overanalysis of things, and you'll get to a point where it's so convoluted you'll say that, oh, we couldn't possibly know all the information in the universe. And a lot of people reach this point, get incredibly depressed, and say that life is meaningless, and you get the same symptoms. There is no one person who fits into this. It's a series of choices that is antithetical to one's own goals, where one would like to be, where one knows that they can reach. At some point in life, we have to be able to decide what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And we also have to spend adequate time on figuring out what it is that we want to do and what we don't want to do. And both of those two things can get people into this trap. Because if you don't spend enough time thinking about what you want to do, you end up in this self-perpetuating cycle where you're stuck on a rail doing something that you don't want to do, and you feel resentment and embitterment, and you still don't know enough to actually get out of that loop. And then that becomes the excuse, the justification for everything that's going on. And at the other end, if you learn, think about it too much, you can't pick between the options. There's too much to do. There's too much to know. You end up spending your entire life thinking about what should I do with it, and then you die. These are two very similar embittered people. Both of them are, on some level, in pursuit of their gods, and neither has reconciled themselves with it. Let's say we have a god, something that we take self-evident, a philosophy, an outlook on life, and let's say it is clinically underdeveloped. Someone quite literally might not know what they believe in, and thus, on the surface level, they may interpret certain things as being beneficial to what they stated that they want to do, and yet following that path will get them to a point where they seem to be contradicting themselves, repeatedly coming across catastrophic failure because they don't know what they're doing. No, scratch that. They know what they're doing. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They don't know exactly what to do, even, because they might know what they're doing, but they don't know, okay, maybe they don't know why that thing is in accordance with their goals, because they don't know their goals, and maybe they think it is, and it actually isn't. And it's that level of insight that's required that you really need that to be able to begin to act. But you also need to act to get the insight to know that. Other issues arise when people try to set their identity to that purpose that they don't understand, and they never look further than that because they feel like they might destroy their identity in doing so. And so, ironically, they may end up creating their identity as somebody that endlessly fails at things. We know people that base their entire personality around mental illness or failure, or the fact that the world just seems to really have it out for them. Very much so part and parcel. And again, you get similar sort of effects from people that delve too deeply into trying to figure out what they believe. Certainly, if I believed that I needed a philosophy degree to be able to read philosophy and come up with my own opinions, I would probably end up in a philosophy department for the next 80 years without ever getting anywhere. That's a grand assumption, but I will take it as at face value. We're trying something. We're doing something. I'm choosing to act here and now. I think that's better than nothing. I think that's better than taking the slog. Because in all honesty, since philosophy has been associated with tenure in philosophy departments, we have gotten nothing good out of philosophy, nothing that normal people can use. And that's the metric that I judge it by. Nothing of wisdom that is actually applicable to life with any sort of broad strokes made. It's all hyper-specific, extra analytical, requires 20 years of background knowledge and research and in-depth knowledge of certain terminologies from different writers, and you got to know at least 3 languages because the translations aren't good enough, so you got to learn the language so you can read a book and this and that. And I think that's fucking bullshit, especially considering that there's been nothing worth reading from philosophers in centuries, we might say. I was going to say decades, but I would say that it's centuries. I mean, if you're really hardcore, you can go touch on Heidegger, Sartre. Those were within the past century, I do believe. I mean, hey, Camus was he's half decent, but he didn't actually give us much to work with, right? I've got a problem with all the philosophers because they're extremely pusillanimous in the way that they go about things. They don't want to tell you their opinion. They want to tell you their opinion and obfuscate it as if everybody secretly thinks this way and yada yada yada, and you just need to think exactly like them. Everybody does that. It's a big fucking problem. Anyways, back on the topic of gods, while there's this thing that is self-evident to us, there is also a thing that we choose to believe in the absence of, right? You can have gods and dead gods, and the dead man regularly switches between the two. If we say that these are tactics or tools, he usually switches between one and the other until they wear out, going through them as quickly as he possibly can, just switching back and forth. And the dead god is the belief in the absence of something. Like, let's say somebody dedicates their entire life to proving the absence of God. And I mean literally God, as in the Abrahamic religion guy, the one that the 3 main religions or 4 main religions in the world believe. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I forgot about Asia. But the 4 main Abrahamic religions, they believe in that. If somebody dedicates their entire life to disproving them, on some level, they believe in that God enough to dedicate their life to it. Or at least they're dedicating their life to prove the absence of something. The whole idea of the dead god is a concept that somebody vehemently does not believe in. And it could be something that exists, very much so. It could be something that has proof standing right in front of their face. It doesn't need to be something like a god where, it's so vague that to some people, as a broad, if you take in all the opinions, it's pretty in the middle of the road. You can't prove that he exists. You can't prove that he doesn't exist, technically, depending on how much you believe in your metrics. And let's be honest, trying to prove that God doesn't exist with science isn't going to fucking work. And also trying to prove that God exists with science isn't going to work. I've seen a little bit of that, and I don't think it's going anywhere. Even if they do get the proof, I'm still not going to take it, because just proving the idea of God with science, you're not going to get to the point where you get enough data and he's going to jump out of the shadows and be like, oh, you got me, ho ho ho. No, that'd ruin the whole thing. You got to have faith in his existence until you get there, and that's just what the faith teaches. So back to it, trying to disprove the existence of something. We see this in politics all the time, trying to disprove a problem that somebody has. Trying to disprove this or that, abstract ideas. Some people try to disprove the fact that certain economic conditions exist, right, using graphs and numbers. It is very much a faith based upon disproving something that other people believe, or not even that they believe, but that somebody perceives that they believe. Usually the person that believes in the dead god creates the image of the other person's god just to kill it. They believe in the universe where that god may have existed at one point, but is now dead. It's like, yes, that idea, if true, would make things better, but it's not. And then they take that situation, right? Now we're in the world where things aren't as they should be. You see where I'm getting at with this? You've got this world that is not as it should be because there is not, quote unquote, this benevolent God there. And then they take this world as it should be and they use that to compare it to the life that they're in right now and say, look at this great oppression by comparison. That is the dead God. They wake up every day and pray to it. It is almost ritualistic how much they are oppressed by these dead gods. So on one hand, you have the God, which is the belief in the presence of something that you can't quite prove. Because on some level, everything's got that. Everybody's got that. And then you have the dead God, which may or may not exist, but you will say that it doesn't exist for some purpose. And these are the two main tools, right? That something without a doubt exists, that something without a doubt is a certain way, and that the absence, without a doubt, things should be a certain way. Without a doubt, things could be better. Without a doubt, this idea does not exist. It cannot exist. And of course, there's a spectrum in between them. The biggest point is that the dead man uses these two strategies, these two sorts of ideas, as ways to gather proof for their excuses. It's used to create proof for maintaining a system of belief that's been calcified, right? A process of thinking that is outdated, a way of thinking that they had at an earlier point in life, let's say. The really easy way to explain this is with childhood. People say, the colors were brighter when I was a child. Things were so much more interesting when I was a child. The world was better when I was a child. And the way that this goes is that people have this idea of the world as it was when they were a child. And we might even say that this is a dead God, because this world that existed when we were children was not, by any very valuable metric in the grand scheme of things, different from the world that we're living in, except for the very small thing of our perception and what we knew about the world. Nothing really changed besides what we saw. As we got older, we had more negative experiences, decided to focus in on things that were bad because those were novel. We shifted our attention away from things that were good, so to speak. And a lot of people that reach this point where they've grown up, but their perceptions have not. Like, of course, their perceptions have grown up, but their perceptions of how things should be because of how they perceived things back then, there's a remnant there. Like the dead God, they most certainly believe that that world as it was when they were a child does not exist, but it is not because the world has changed. It is because they've seen the world. But the good news about this is that the good things they saw in the world as a child also exist. The problem is that they don't take the time anymore to look at those things, to investigate those things, to care about those things. And it's really the focus of attention that has changed and ironically destroyed the world as it was when we were a child, because we can still see those things. We can still have curiosity about those things. We just label them in different ways and find excuses not to do that because, frankly, seeing the world as a child, having curiosity, pursuing things, going outside, playing, it's exhausting and a little bit embarrassing if you don't have the right crowd around it. And even though I think that everybody should do those things, it takes time to do those things. It is so much easier to just reminisce about it and say, I don't understand why things have changed, as a vague statement that really means, why isn't there an easier way to attain that same feeling? Please give it to me. It seems absurd at first. But when you realize that so many people think this way, and that just by saying it, they can get a little bit of communal validation, some sort of interpersonal connection, just by being miserable over that fact, you realize that a new incentive structure has arisen, and it's entirely around making the world out to be as miserable as possible. Because if you don't have new things to complain about, it gets very boring. And if you also run out of things to complain about, and you start doing things that make the world seem like a better place, you have to suddenly live with the realization that you were wrong for like a decade, and that you missed out on that time. And that's a very strong disincentivization to not do that, especially if you're already in this mode of thinking that is very centered around an instant gratification, which people likely are in. if they've gone the route of just indulging in misery, you might say, in this particular manner. So there is not much of an incentive to get out. Touching on that idea, like I said, calcified. What does that mean? A system of belief that's been calcified. Somebody has an experience. Hang on, let me pull this up actually. Somebody has an experience influenced by their choices in some which way that creates a perception of however that experience was, which goes on to form a general belief on how reality is, right? That's like our framework of reality. And then the belief in the certainty of something, whatever it was, whatever we gained from that experience that we locked into our neuronal networks, the belief in the certainty of something goes back in this sort of like calcifying loop to create the perception of the circumstances, the reason why things happen the way that they were. It creates the perception of those circumstances, influencing the choices that go on to shape those experiences more. You can imagine what happens if we get in the habit of perceiving our circumstances as continually and forever bad. Because if our belief, if our framework of reality is stuck on bad, and especially on circumstances can't be controlled for some which reason, even if it's like chance, like this is the biggest scapegoat that people use because it's very vague. It doesn't actually, they don't actually have to say that they believe in like determinism or something, or that everything is causal. They say that, oh, if only this one thing, this chance aspect of this whole circumstance that I got sucked into, if that was different, then it would have worked out. And then you get a system of belief that the world is negative and also that it's against you in some way, right? Chance, circumstance is against you. And then that's become part of the belief. And then how likely are you to succeed the next time or to take responsibility the next time? Not very likely. In some which way, these all get used as proof for excuses. And remember, we've also, I mean, you're in a recap. You're not here for me to say that, go watch this other video. We talked about it there. We've gone over the lack of importance on the actual words that are being said instead of the constancy of one's stated purpose. Like, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter if you've tried, if you're going to do something, if you could have done something a different way. What really matters is what happens. It really doesn't matter what you do as long as an outcome comes out of it. An outcome that is satisfactory to somebody's standards, whoever's standards that you hold to be of importance. Usually your own. Actions speak louder than words, but also results speak louder than actions. Feelings speak louder than actions, right? How do you feel about what has transpired? How can you change that? These are all things that would be likely good to pay attention to. But people can have a very cohesive and consistent way of framing what they say they believe in and still end up with all of these contradictions. Whether it's because they've overthunk it to the point of accidentally aligning themselves with like 10 different sets of principles that are inherently contradictory, but they've strung together this list of caveats that says why they're actually one complete belief, and then they ignore all the contradictions that exist in between it. And I'm not talking about logical contradictions. I'm talking about contradictions in the way that they act. Like somebody says that, like somebody manages to fit into their philosophy of life, whatever you might call it, both the idea that they're very disciplined because they think this way, and also the fact that they are allowed to pursue indulgence because of this philosophy, the way that they believe. Just as important is the fact that it is not malicious. The dead man in his ways, it's not, by any stretch of the word, any stretch of the means, any stretch of the... I don't know. What is it stretching? Any of the stretch? Where is it along the stretch? Who fucking knows? It is not something that is intentionally malicious. It is not something that is sadistic. It is not something that you can blame them for, because what you would blame them for is something that they're not doing, which you can't prove. It's something that goes on inside of their head. Of course, you can't blame them for it, right? You see how this entire mindset is built up around excuses? It is, but it is also not malicious. It sets itself up to be ignorant of itself. All of the greatest tragedies, all of the greatest tragedies in history sort of went this way. It's people that were very, very good at convincing other people that they believed in something that they didn't, and ended up allowing them to pursue their underlying stated goal, which was actually antithetical to what they set out to do. Politicians are very good at this. They'll tell you one thing when they mean another. They'll end up making something out to be incredibly moral, righteous, progressive, and believe in it wholeheartedly. That's the important part. They believe that it is that way. They've convinced themselves of it through this framework. They never started out with the inherently malicious goal. They started out with wanting to be accepted and have their goals. So they went to the extra effort to change the words. When they were developing the ideas, they used the words that would be accepted as a way to frame these ideas, and then it became some sort of god-awful Trojan horse, you might say. I call this like a state of conscious ignorance, where somebody might be aware that they're avoiding information, building up walls in front of what they won't know, but they have a good reason for it. And the thing that would disprove that reason is actually in what they're avoiding, but you can't prove that. So they're more likely to be right in their own mind, and that justifies the pursuit. All right? And we won't get into it today because that'll take too much time, but it comes about through like a familiarity for excuses, the inability to focus on what somebody wants instead of focusing just completely on the negative. There's like this secondhand disassociation from the stated beliefs to avoid the responsibility for what one is saying, right? There's been plenty of examples in the series so far of that particular one where you sort of just disagree with everything and then say your belief and then say that it's not this other thing because you've already framed it in a way that seems negative, right? It's a way to put out your beliefs without actually committing to them, and to say that you're not associated with the other people that believe this and this and that. It's a good way to remove responsibility from yourself, right? Excuses, right? And it also helps that you've got the truth, the God, the things that don't exist, the dead God, to use as examples to end up being absolutely certain of everything and nothing simultaneously, right? The dead man just sort of instinctually frames his actions to reinforce his perceptions. Like when he's asking for feedback, no matter what, if it's positive or if it's negative, it will stand as proof for whatever belief that he's just trying to reinforce. He literally can't not believe that he is doing the right thing because of this thought process. No matter how convoluted it is, it justifies it to himself. He won't believe us about this. That's the thing. It's something that you have to see the patterns yourself. You have to recognize it in yourself. You have to make the hard decisions. You have to give up on a lot of the thoughts, a lot of the things that you thought you believed. You have to expose yourself to different things to a certain extent. But it really comes down to only the dead man can get himself out of the situation, and he doesn't believe that. He believes that he is entitled to somebody else getting him out of this situation. None of the things that the dead man actually believes in, states that he believes in, whether political issues or otherwise, none of that matters until it does. Because the real issue is the absence of action, an inability to interact with a reality that is beneficial to their ends. Like the issue is that they create a world for themselves that they can complain about, where they could be using those exact same tactics for creating like a world that they'd be proud to be part of. The issue usually lies in the fact that whatever they believe in, they don't actually set out to accomplish, and it's very obvious to everybody, but nobody can say anything about it. Because all of this that we've just talked about, and so much more, has allowed them to justify being too lazy to create any meaning, just smart enough to stay ignorant, too stupid enough to see hope, so addicted to complaining about the actions that are destroying them that they refuse to stop. It's allowed them to appear moral and incapable enough to demand entitlement, and just annoying and incomprehensible enough to make sure that people won't go to the effort to call them out. Obviously, it takes a lot of effort. I've given a 50-minute recap. The issue is the priority on the immediate and obvious, something that you can do now and see results for now. The problem is that he believes that there are actions that do nothing. Because of this short-minded perspective, he believes that a whole lot of nothing doesn't matter. Right? He thinks that there's no long-term consequences to doing absolutely nothing. This idea that if one man just happens to rot away in his bedroom for all of eternity until he dies, that's not going to have an impact on the world. I could make half a dozen arguments as to why it would, but the biggest one is that people live by example. And that is a very easy way to live, no matter how miserable, and some people will follow in the example. Nothing that we do is without consequence. That is one of the beliefs that I will say that is bullshit. Right? But that's not a political belief. Anyways. Right? What we're focusing on is that if something seems impossible, we've probably overlooked a step. Right? We're not starting from the beginning. We're trying to start from the middle. If it seems impossible, we've probably overlooked a step. Maybe we're unwilling to take that first step. So we focus on the second and say we can't do it. And the reason is because of the first, but we're not going to acknowledge that. We don't have to. Or, if it seems impossible, we're probably aware on some level, maybe if it's consciously ignorant, that we're obsessed with a fantasy of how things should be. We have a desire for the best possible outcome and complete ambivalence for the steps to get there. Because perhaps there are too many steps. Perhaps we will die before we can take all the steps. And we could be doing so many things instead of taking those steps towards the thing that we want to do, that we want out of life, right? Usually it has something to do with indulgence, right? I can't do that because I wouldn't have enough free time, and if I didn't have enough free time to, wind down, I'd lose my shit and not do the things that I quote-unquote actually have to, right? We see that a lot, but in reality, it's like some nuclear-level copium. What I'm hypothesizing is the idea that his own actions, when I say him as a vagary, I'm referring to the dead man, right? What can the dead man do to not be him? It's a very safe way of referencing to somebody, right? You address them as their problems, not as their person. Let's see, I'm distancing myself from possible criticisms. Oh, you should be addressing this in vagaries. You should just give us the abstractions. We can apply it whenever. No, I'm making this easy for myself. I'll address you by your problems. And if you don't have them, then I'm not addressing you. Whoa, crazy. Or maybe you're avoiding the fact that you have them. Maybe you're in denial. You ever thought about that? Did you? Maybe you should. But I'm not. I'm not addressing you. You see, I'm being honest. I'll touch on that in a minute. I'm putting forth the idea that his own actions, perceptions, and beliefs dictate his past, present, and future circumstances. He has created his own disposition to misery, and only he can find a way out of it. This is a wonderful world. You just have to see it. If it's not a wonderful world, you can change it. If you cannot change it, it doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. It's fairy dust, fugazi. And it being your actions, perceptions, or beliefs. You can change one of those three things. If you cannot change it, it does not exist. Right, see, I'm using the same ideas that the dead man is. And the reason for that is that we all use these same ideas. Like, I've created ideas that we all use. But I've laid them out in a way that makes it obvious when they're of detriment to somebody. When I say, if you cannot change something, then it does not exist, suddenly you don't have a problem. That is, if you choose to believe it. If somebody has a problem that they can change, and they say that the problem doesn't exist, that does not help them. In fact, it makes the problem unsolvable. Just by virtue of saying that. By believing that it doesn't exist, they can't address it, and then they don't know what the symptoms are from. And you know it's the dead man when they have the symptoms and do not know where those symptoms are from, even if it's because it's so obvious where their problems stem from, but they have this idea of something else that it's come from, something that cannot be conquered, some sort of great oppression that cannot be overcome, something that they can't do anything about, right? They so strongly believe in that is their reality. They believe in it so strongly that nobody will address them about it. These are people that you fear telling about their problems because you know they're not going to believe you, and that you know that you'll make the situation worse by telling them. Again, when they ask for feedback, whatever you give them will reinforce their worldview, either if it's positive or negative. This is the type of person that this is the archetype that we're dealing with here. So there's a lot more depth to go into, far more footnotes and appendices that I could put into place, far better ways that all of these arguments could be structured, more concise, easier to read, listen to, whatever. And honestly, that's why we're all here. I encourage you to all ask questions, to call shit out. But like, if you do call something out, make sure that you already make sure to double check that you don't already know the answer first. Because you can ask questions that are totally facetious and be like, "Oh, what does this mean? You say better ways to do things, but what does better mean?" Shut the fuck up, Socrates. I'm gonna get the Senate together, and we're gonna poison you. We're gonna make you drink poisoned wine in front of everybody. Okay? Ask real questions that will develop this further. Like if you genuinely reach a point and you're like, huh? Like you don't know what's going on. That's what I want to know. Like if I say something and you just don't get it, that's where I want you to address it. Like we're here to be honest about our actions and incentives. I'm trying to do that to the best of my abilities. So I really need the lashing of the internet to make sure that I actually believe what I do and that what I believe is accurate, because I'm very willing and able to change my beliefs on a dime, because what I'm really doing is I'm just taking whatever other people say and I'm like retrofitting that into the philosophy. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a valid point, and then I just rearrange everything for that to fit in there. Is that hypocritical, dishonest in some way? Maybe. I don't fucking think so. I think that's what philosophers should have done. Maybe their shit would have made more sense. I've shared excerpts and snippets with people, and I've gotten a lot of these things and a lot of these insights. Does that make it more dishonest? Does that make it a collaborative work? No, it's the same thing when I read those books that I disagree with, where I read something and I'm like, that's fucking stupid. But in the same time, I never thought about the idea before, and in that instant, I learned my opinion, which wasn't what was on the book. While we're being honest, I'm doing this because I hate this type of person, this archetype, the mindset, which is in all of us. No matter how long the leash is, it's all there. Because it's really just the things that... It's really just the excuses that we make for ourselves, the excuses that we allow other people to make, so then they'll give us that same leniency, if you know what I'm saying. I am doing this to create disgust for that. Disgust for that leniency that we give to others. We've really allowed the incentives for this whole situation, for that leniency that creates the self-perpetuating victim that is this dead man that we're talking about. It's gone long enough. And we've allowed it because they're victims, right? All we end up doing is create a resentment within them towards us. Because even though they're asking for it, literally, they don't quite believe that they're asking for it. Like, we catch them before they can hit the ground constantly. That's the crux of the issue. With these types of people, we catch them before they hit the ground. Right? If you're never allowed to hit the floor, you've got nothing to stand on. We've created a resentment within these types of people for us because we allow this to continue to happen. Because even though they don't believe that their purpose will come from themselves on some level, it will. It takes their responsibility. Even if they believe they're entitled to assistance in some which way, entitled to a certain position, it won't bring them that purpose that they thought it would if they just get it because they think that they're entitled to it. We value things that we buy with our own money. We value projects that we've put labor into. Not because of the project per se, yeah, that's some of it, but it becomes that something special that is purpose, that thing that we're all looking for in life, when we know that we were responsible for it. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The biggest sin of man is to not do something that he knows himself capable of doing. That is what I believe brings the most embitterment to anyone, ever. And almost everything that the dead man does prevents him from putting in the massive effort that it takes to create a scenario where he might actually achieve something like this. All based on the fact that he is oppressed by something, someone that has taken this sense of purpose from him. It was himself. He is responsible for achieving this goal, not somebody else. And he is also responsible for who he is now, the state that he is in, and everything bad that's basically happened to him. May not be true, but it's the mindset that matters. Because if you believe you're responsible for the past, it's logical to hold yourself responsible for the present and the future. And that's how you get there. Don't take my ideas as your own. This is not like don't steal my ideas. I don't give a shit. You can talk about them if you want to. I mean, don't take my ideas as your own. Don't internalize them. Don't turn these into your perspective on life. They're my perspective. This is my perspective, not yours. Another part of my philosophy, very important, is don't take the free opinions. If it's too good to be true, it is. You cannot absorb somebody else's philosophy. You have to know what you think. All of this is to try to give people, it's a philosophy of trying to go through life in a manner where you can give others your honest perspective in a way that allows them to feel comfortable with, to verbalize, and to gain better insight onto their own perspective. My biases will not fit yours. They won't, not 100%. I've got some weird ones in there, and I'll do my best to keep them out. But on some level, you cannot fully agree with me. So you can't take this as your own. The times will change, I will change, you will change, everything will change, and all of this at some point will become incorrect. That's the way that things work, the way the cookie crumbles. The continuum goes on without us. Like I said, we cannot become static. We cannot allow ideas to calcify. We have to, at some point, we're going to have to break the loop. And I talked about that more in the last video, so go fucking watch that. I should say, I talked about that in the last segment, like an hour and 30 minutes ago. Yeah, because this is totally the full video. Anyways, I'm just attempting to try to set like an example of unfiltered honesty and to try to justify why I believe what I do in a way that can hopefully make sense in a manner that will better allow people to enhance their own perspectives on things. One more thing. And one more thing before we get into the video. I know it's been a long intro, but don't lie to me. You love this shit. This is what you're here for. The babbling, the rambling, the mistakes. All of this. It's just chill. This is the kind of content you like. So, don't complain about it. I know you like it. One more thing before we get started. I will probably lie on accident. Alright? We all do it. Don't say that you don't. We all of the time, when we accidentally stumble onto a subject that we don't care about all that much, and we've forgotten what we've previously said on that, or if we just never really looked into it that much, we're bound to make a snap judgment assertion. And I do that all the time. Right? Just call me out on it. Do it. Double check things, because I might actually make an assertion that would fundamentally contradict me later, and I'll just forget about it because I didn't think it was that important. So keep that in mind. Anyways, still trying to break my conditioning. It's all self-inflicted, of course, right? Let's get into this response.
That's not, I mean, we're not going to go to a better world until we die, you know. We're all stuck in this world no matter what until the end, you know.
Oh, fuck, dude. I don't feel like talking. I do feel like talking. I really want to talk. I gotta get this shit. I normally don't ask questions in posing things. I when addressing a statement in which I disagree with, I attempt to avoid asking questions, facetious questions that are just pretty much like, what's the word? Rhetorical, performative questions. But I do really wonder. I want to say. I just want to ask. Where did you get to that other world? We're not going to go to a better world until we die. Oh, fuck. I don't know if you heard that. I just smacked my two front teeth on the microphone. God damn. I mean, we're not going to go to a better place. We're not going to go to a better world until we die. This implies that there was a plan to begin with for a better world. Maybe you're addressing the fairy dust determinists again, right? Implicating that there's a plan to be had. Implicating that there's something that could have come out of all of this, if not for your dead god. But where is this fantasy world of yours? It's the... oh boy, the ether. You want to go back into the ether, get swallowed up by the nothingness, the net zero emotion chamber. The pure numbness, not the induced kind that you endure through every single day just by scrolling on your phone. The result of habitual indulgence. A novelty of novelties isn't... no, it's no longer novelty. It's a pattern of indulgence. Can't have simultaneously novelty and contentment. They don't exist. We want purpose in life. Is that something that we desire? I'm assuming for some of us that would be the case, but in a good majority of us, we would want... I think we recognize that there is... we as a human species, why do I keep saying that? I think we recognize, like, that's basically the equivalent of him saying, those are both true, you know. It's true, you know. Take it at face value, you know. Fantasy land. Why would you create a fantasy land that only exists when you die? Is that because no one can disprove it? I mean, you dismiss other philosophical systems with absolutely no proof on the on that basis, and you state that you have no conception of how people believe in these things. But as we've stated, you yourself believe in these things. Just for the sake of this fantasy that is after life. But why? Why such the bold claim? Yeah. Let's just all wait until we have no more time. Because it's once we have no more time that we'll know if we get to the better world. You'll see, trust me. But you just don't do anything until then. Just wait to die. Just wait. Yeah, just wait until you can't change anything. If it can only come after you can't change anything, then you can't get mad at me for not changing anything, because really there's nothing that I can do, because the better world only comes after I die. I'm surprised I'm even keeping any modicum of pace with this guy. Does he have some sort of fucking certainty fetish? Because that's what it seems like. No, it's not. It's whatever fits the moment, whatever enables him to not do anything. To be able to absorb like a fucking sponge. Just whatever responses that he can get from anything or anyone to justify the next moment of his life. He's looking for some sort of like authority figure, a surrogate authority figure. And not in the sense that he wants Stalin sitting over his shoulder. It's like he wants to say something that gets a response out of somebody that lets him know what to do next. They're not going to tell him, but it'll be the implication. If he hates them, he'll do the opposite. If he doesn't hate them, then he'll try doing that thing and then he'll fail at it. Or maybe there'll be a more tame variant version of whatever that activity is. Some sort of, failure? The inability to experience joy within that activity, and thus it fails. And yes, sorry, I know you helped me, you did a great job in directing me, but unfortunately we have reached the point where your services are no longer required.
I looked at this man and I said, what a bad job. What a terrible job you've done. What an awful situation you've created for yourself, mister. You're fired. What a terrible job. You're a moron.
We are devolving into what we once were long ago before. He's acknowledging that there's another world. He's acknowledging blatantly his fantasy on paper while he still says that nothing is predetermined, and yet he acknowledges this fantasy on paper, on proof, on video. Fuck. I'm being in my shit right now. He's giving himself a way to get to that fantasy, right? Because he doesn't know what happens when he dies, no matter how much certainty he has, no matter what he says, he doesn't fucking know. He said as much. He doesn't know. He can't know anything. He can't even explain human behavior. He doesn't know why he's acting like this. Why should he trust himself if he doesn't even understand human behavior, if he doesn't understand his behavior? Clearly he doesn't, because he believes that everything is random. He's simply giving himself a way to get to his fantasy. He's saying that it's certain because who knows what'll happen after death? Who fucking knows? What'll transpire? What will transpire? Will he fall down into the ether? Will he get sent down to be sodomized by the big red man down below, somewhere down there? Will he even have a problem with that? Is that a point of contention with him? It gives him a way into this fantasy, and moreover, and most importantly, it gives him something to do. It gives him a purpose. What is that purpose? Waiting. He can wait more effectively. He can wait with an excuse. He can wait with a reason. He can wait with other people. He can convince them to come and join him. He can wait. And guess what? It's not doing anything. He's just waiting for it all to end so then he can finally get to the good part. Waiting to get to the good part. How does he know it exists? Well, he shouldn't be able to. Problem is that we have proof that people can create good moments here and now. There is no proof that there will be good moments thereafter, especially by his standards. He's getting some sick sense of purpose in removing it. He's creating this dead god, this absence of purpose. He has nothing to do. He's following his impulses. He's giving himself the time and space. He's clocking in to follow his impulses wherever they go, and that's why it's random. He's given himself a time sheet. He's given himself a punch-in clock where he can go and indulge. Right? This is just the randomness, the meaninglessness, the randomness. That's what it is. Like, oh, we're all stuck in this world, no matter what, until the end. You know, we're all stuck in it till the end. Life is what you make of it. He's quote-unquote stuck in a quote-unquote world, the better of which he can only get to through death. Moreover, he uses the word we. Who the fuck is we, buddy? Who is we? It's clearly not me. I'm here. What is your collective we? The enlightened ones are the ones who agree with you? The ones who will sit around and do nothing and diddle their bean until death? Until death may we part. Please let it come soon. End this misery. Turning everything into a misery and inviting everyone to join. It's not I'm stuck here. It's we're stuck here. You're stuck here. with me in this situation. He's got to sell this idea to us, no matter how incoherent or pessimistic it is. It doesn't matter what we think of the idea. It matters about it matters what we'll do about it. And as it stands now, we won't do anything about it. So he just gets this illusion in his head that we're just following him along, because no response is a response. No response means yes. This is not what they taught you in your consent classes. When they sat you down in front of the projector in middle school in 8th grade and showed you a clip about how to handle consent, no answer is not consent. But to him, a negative answer, they just don't get it. Positive answer, see, everybody agrees with me. No answer, they're just being silent. The ones that disagree with him, they're lying through their ass about being happy, apparently. Really, what do you think will happen once you die? The ether, I'll tell you what'll happen once you die. You'll be forgotten about, and you'll have left nothing but an example of misery and just complete pathetic behavior. That's what you'll have left behind. If you believe what you say you believe in, there will be nothing for you. Not even some ether. Your existence will cease. But guess what? The world will go on without you, and it will not be better off without you. It will not have not changed. It will be worse off because you were there. The dead man, that is. I'm not addressing any specific individual. I must make this disclaimer. We're addressing the idea of the dead man. If the dead man has the perception that all of his actions do not have consequences, if he perceives that he acts in a way that only affects him, he's wrong. People learn by example. He will jump into the void and leave behind nothing but a fragment of a memory of support for some sort of movement that justified waiting for death. There will be nothing of his personal being that will be remembered. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. He says he deserves better, but he doesn't create anything. He doesn't create anything that would make him worthy of deserving anything. No memory. No personal memory. All you're here to do is to reinforce an idea that on paper you hate, that you despise. You think the world should be a certain way? Embody it. What is the world's full potential? What is it? It is not waiting to die. It is not sitting around on your ass and jerking off with any form of indulgence. Not consumption, not stimulation, not status. Trust me, dude, there is no impulse that will get you to a point of fulfillment. You cannot follow your nose to success. At least not when you're following this sort of thing. Perhaps your success is just hedonic conquest. Fair enough, but do you want meaning out of life? You want things to not be random. You want things to not be random, and you perceive the basic human brain to be inherently random, the universe to be random. Shake it up. That's your choice to stop the randomness. Anything can do that. All you have to do is not indulge every single time. All you gotta do is take a fucking breather, let something pass by, resist what you feel the strongest impulses to do or not do, and just make things a little bit groovy every now and again. If you need a reason to do anything, maybe try doing things without a reason. Because if you're avoiding doing things because there's no reason, guess what? You're just not going to do those things. Or you're going to do those things and you're going to head into it with the mindset of not finding a reason. And you'll find a reason to not find a reason. Do it without a reason. Expect nothing. No, don't expect nothing. Don't expect there to be nothing. Just don't have expectations. Enter a situation, let it happen. Go along with it. Don't think about you. Think about the present. Keep your mind in front of your eyes. Don't let it go back there. I know you want to suck it in there like a turtle into a shell, or like you're going in to hide in your foreskin. No, suboptimal, buddy. You gotta stick your mind in front of your eyes. You gotta forget that you need to process everything, because you don't. You said it yourself. Life is random and meaningless. So just do it. Put your brain in front of your eyes. Live in the present for half a second, right? Do that until you forget that you're supposed to be thinking about it for some reason, even though everything you said suggests that you don't need to. Don't seek impulses, seek to continue the moment. That's it. Try to maintain it. Challenge yourself for no fucking reason. Guess what? You'll find a reason at some point. You'll find some aspect of a situation that you'll enjoy, and you'll want to do it again, do it better, do it with better company, so on and so forth. You could be playing cornhole with some backwood hillbillies. Just get in the moment. You'll find a reason. Maybe you just go out and join a random fucking bowling league, okay? There's a reason why guys join bowling leagues. It gives them a reason to do just about everything else. I mean, what do you got going for you? You gotta have something if you don't want it to be meaningless. If you don't want it to be random and meaningless. Try things long enough that you stop being bored of them. Try things with your brain in front of your eyes. Let yourself get bored, and then let that thing entertain you. Let it entertain you, let it engage you, let it frustrate you, let it teach you how to have fun on demand. There, you have something to do that you can consistently seek out. That is a source of future possible contentment. You likely just gained a social circle. You will likely occasionally be around prospective partners. You will likely occasionally be having fun and know when it's coming, therefore not random. There you go. I just gave you structure and meaning. You happy? Well, you're probably going to say, oh, I was already happy before this, bro. What are you on? This is a bit intense, dude. Why are you making this fucking 6-hour video? You're fucking weird, dude. I never said I wasn't happy. Random and meaningless. If you're happy, if you're content, if you're enjoying more, if you're enjoying your simple life more because of the way that you think, then shut up and stop spreading the way that you think, because 95% of people that think the way that you do aren't happy. So anybody that you influence, if you have an impact on them, likely negative. So if you've somehow found some sort of contentment within the sphere of thought, great. Now shut up, because it is demonstrably suboptimal on the psyches of those that consume and pursue this sort of philosophical air quotes entertainment, air quotes. This is just venting. This is complaining under the guise of irony, seeking some sort of fleeting community in misery. And you can't even attach yourself to that. You can't even grab onto that and run with it. You're like, no, it's irony, dude. It's dark humor. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's what his channel description said. I've forgotten. It's been a few days since I've checked.
At the end of the day, how does life have any meaning to it, you know?
Yeah, at the end of the day, life it does not have any meaning. You can get nothing out of it. There is nothing for you here, good buddy, old pal. I'm reading into this excessively, but just enough. Trust me on this. He is staring at the playback screen for his video here, and like looking at himself for confirmation. Like, is what I'm saying just about right? Yeah, this is a banger. This is a banger. Did I convince them properly? Yeah, I got it. It's all working out. It's all going to plan. Dude just stated that as if it just confirmed it. Literally everything he just spewed out. At the end of the day, life is random and meaningless, you know? Let's just neglect the fact that every single statement of his interpretation of meaning that he put forward was some strange interpretation of another person's belief. Like something that you would get off of a Twitter. No, like a second-hand account of what you would tell somebody about an opinion that you saw on Twitter that disagreed with you. You're like, no, they're actually brain dead and stupid because they believe this particular thing because of this particular thing. And I mean, we don't have enough words in the day to actually accurately represent anybody's argument in good or bad faith on the internet. Even with the shortened character limit, like, let's not even don't even mind the fact that you can barely even get out your opinion in a satisfactory manner in the first go on the internet or anywhere in the world. Let's take a step further and say, like, the secondhand accounts, the interpretations of other people's beliefs through this lens, good fucking luck, dude. No, you're not going to accurately represent it, but I think you could have a little bit of sentience, a minuscule amount, and still recognize this. Possibly. I have hope for a lot of people, even the midwits, the retards, people such as myself, that we can recognize that we're not going to even comprehend other people's opinions, and that's fine. But if you're going to put an opinion out on the internet about somebody else's opinion, at least try to represent it in a way that doesn't make you look bad just by poorly representing it to such a magnitude that people have no other option than to interpret it as utterly facetious. And I know about this because when I started out on commentary ages ago, gosh, I was like 17, 16, I was doing the same thing. And people would point out that bullshit. They would point out all the stuff you glossed over. If you really like crammed an entire ideological belief into a single package and associate it with some frankly bullshit opinion, people aren't going to be very appreciative of that. And it's understandable, to say the least. And I do wonder if the brevity of his particular style of summary for other people's opinions is because it's very easy to give brief summaries of other people's opinions on the internet. But I wonder if that same effect can be had just by the sheer magnitude of response, like what I'm doing. Is this facetious? Is this a misrepresentation of his belief? Absolutely, in the way that he wants it to be known. Everything that I'm saying is an absolute misrepresentation of his entire belief. But at least I'm giving him the time of day to flesh out his belief in my worldview and explaining to you why I think it's stupid in great, grand detail, and not just writing it off in some particular moment, some fleeting, passing comment. I'm here putting up a fight. I'm probably saying more about his particular beliefs than he is. Like, the average length of the videos on his channel is like 8 minutes. I would not be surprised if I surpass the amount of total time, video time, that's on his entire channel with this video. Is that possible? Probably not. I mean, if this video gets as long as I assume it would be, it would take about 72 of his videos to match. But, I mean, I'm also going to continue putting out content in this vein, so, which will apply to the to the mindset that he displays in this particular video. But again, I feel justified in stigmatizing this type of worldview because, in my own words, I don't like it. I don't think it's good. That's simply about it. But I justify it by comparing it to his stance, which is that he doesn't like people that don't think like him because he thinks that he has the more moral high ground. You see, he's lying. We all do this. We all make the other person out to look worse than they inherently are. All of us. Especially him. I would say I'm being rather cordial in a facetious, ironic sort of way with this, giving him a bit of the red carpet, a significant amount of indulgence in his time. I want it abundantly clear to anybody that's watching why they should think it's stupid. He's just telling you to take him at face value. Do you know why you shouldn't think that life is random and meaningless? The simple answer is because if you think that life is random and meaningless, life can't be anything other than random and meaningless. That's the most simple, straightforward answer that I can give you. And at the risk of constantly repeating myself, I think we should go forward with the statement that just because you hear something over and over and over again does not mean that it's true. But it is a system that demonstrably works. So I thought I'd throw that reminder in there. Let's actually indulge in some new content, some additional ideas. I've got this section called The Dead Horse for a Dead Man, or Dead Horse for a Dead Man. And I think it's fairly self-explanatory. If you've heard the euphemism, is that what it is? A euphemism to beat a dead horse? You'll probably know what I mean. And the idea that you just hear things over and over and over and over again, and it eventually just crams its way into your worldview, and whether you like to believe it or not, it simply just exists there. And if we get in the habit of just accepting the sort of browbeating of these ideas into our skulls as we age and mature, we probably won't, for one, but we'll also accumulate the ideas of other people, oftentimes pessimistic, the types of ideas that require you to browbeat your ideas into other people for them to accept it. And that's generally a negative thing, I would say. Not positive. Oftentimes, going very, very long times without realizing that we actually believe in these things that just sort of ingrained under our skin, that we've learned through elementary school, through middle school, through some sort of social conditioning that's not necessarily intentional, but is there as a product of the times. And when it is negative, when it is inherently nihilistic, we use that as a sort of a foundation for what we have in life. And when it's, especially when it's paired with like the participation trophy, you deserve everything, everybody's a special little snowflake. Yeah, that kind of wording, you get the strange mix of beliefs where you're like, oh, I should be a special snowflake. Where we're like, we were promised to be rock stars and movie gods, but look where the fuck we are. A Fight Club scene. Okay. we keep coming back to that. Fight Club clips. It's a pretty good resource, I would say. For quotes, that is. But if we pair these two ideas, we get the expectation that we're supposed to get something grander out of life, that we're supposed to be above everybody else while still individual on the same level, and it's a very, very contradictory point of view. And right, we can't do one because of the other. We can't become the rock stars and movie gods because there's global warming, because of systemic oppression, because we need to give somebody else a fighting chance, because we need to be fair and equal. And we're very bitter about both. We don't like the victims, and we don't like the people that succeed, because the people that succeed make us feel like victims. The people that are victims make us feel like we're oppressors. And so where do we stand in there? Where do we stand? Well, I think the correct stance would be your own, not an amalgamation of every other stance that you've ever heard, because that's a very polarizing dichotomy, that you can be anything you ever want to be, and that you probably won't become anything because you're prevented from being what you're supposed to be by some invisible mastermind force out there. No, fuck that shit. Let me read you a fucking poem, dude. The beaten brow knows not other how, keeping slaved ideals in check. A sorry town, so beaten down, keeps shipping from a wreck. Forlorn repetition, shouted contrary ideal, kept starving every moment to choke down every meal. Everything is done for them to stop their skulls from caving in. All will be better, now just one more time. We'll remedy all pulpy brows with blows to other sides. Right, like, here, have one problem. All right, yeah, okay, here's a solution, but it's actually another problem. Trust me, once you get this other problem, once you're oppressed by this one, then you can demand recompense for this other one. Oh, but then since you've gotten compensated for this other one, now you need a new oppression, because otherwise you will be the oppressor, because somebody is losing out. It's a net zero game. What are you doing here? You beat the dead horse. Beat it. Just beat it. Beat it. We're taught endlessly about the disadvantage to overcoming the barrier of experience and talent by virtue. I've learned nothing. Absolutely nothing of people who thrived, who were at the peak of competence in their field, who enjoyed life, who died happy. The figureheads we've chosen, discriminated against, incompetent, underqualified, sulking in their shadows, and lauded for achievements of others because they claimed the most suffering. We're left with no metric to aim at when we're only taught about those who've overcome themselves to achieve mediocrity and be given arid praise for the part they played. No more presidents, heroes, legends, or greats. No, this is the era of the pious dead. Praise, worship, commendation to no one but the little guy who people only pretended to care about. And now we must all contend with a world of wanderers who are laying down in filth so they'll have something to look up to. Jesus fucking Christ, when did I write this shit? What? What?
Children, when being presented with no shining light, no mountaintop, when they're told of no view, they wander through the fog, seek to gain adoration given to cave-dwelling beggars, never climb to see that view. The curriculum for posterity contains insurmountable struggle with fortune forever in spite of it, or inborn to the privileged who are many, and encouraged to abstain from participation altogether. Such struggle promised to be ever present, demanding dependence but promoting autonomy. No serene green pastures, no precipient aged ideal. How can there be a climb to eminence if the walk is entirely downhill? Heroes are oppressors, virtue binds with chains, leaders are tyrants, unity excludes the vagabonds. The mother is devouring, the father is a patriarch. Wisdom has no authority when it's too ripe, until the snap instant it becomes too senile. Everyone is competition, yet must also be an ally. Everything is known, yet pending in its biannual update. Every action is a struggle, yet someone is doing it effortlessly, naturally, becoming their character flaw we must attribute in settling the water of our hierarchy. Every beauty can be reduced to mathematics, yet in its utter subjectivity should not be sought or proclaimed in hubris of certainty and skepticism to endless opposing ends. How the life expectancy of the young minds has plummeted, battling the dipoles of certainties, commendations of nature outside, concrete mural depictions, love of humanity and hate of humans. Has it become a colloquial sin to not? Fathers are begged for their reprehensible and firm hand, so the children leap to vice, distress, chaos, so desperate to run headlong into a boundary for the confirmation of their world as something steadfast beyond this slippery mist that leaves them confused, without footing. Reassuring, shifty words only make this qualm's expanse more daunting. We may tell them of things, but never know why nor how. lest we be wrong and face the child's wrath, of which we have been assured this method to subdue it. How inevitable, though. If any mind's nature cannot be idealized as it should, it is the mind of the child. The minds we turn our blind, abandoning eye upon until the intended, docile, divine nature springs out, abortive and mangled from this Pavlovian caretaking, to our great shock. Outcomes, yea, we must forever look past the outcomes until that beast swallows us in a willing, ignorance gestated whale's proportions. Judge only, yea, the inclusivity of the next century's proposed solution. Content of the outcome? Nay, heed the words alone. Ye cannot trust those eyes. Let them choose, we say. First tear down the mythology of life. So these little computers only get the data. It's only right, we say. Belief no longer needs to be necessary. A necessary iteration towards truth? Towards an understanding of any sort? Or perhaps those who needed to work back from impersonal data to explain their childhood had never firstly experienced it. They seek to find the path for the young to walk towards without the shining light which they never themselves saw, never stopping to ask if a lit path would be of any help. Role models and dreams factored out a priori, but still one of the best ways to walk might be with the eyes open. And not only will we refuse to confirm their footing, the boundaries they may one day rebuild, of all the protection offered, only a ceiling to frustrate their upward gaze, but also refused is their future. Be anything to the praise-hungry mind means nothing. In fact, means be nothing to this tribal homunculus in secretive feverishness to the right of passage for dominion. It doesn't matter as long as you're happy, said to the developing mind who needs to matter, to have place, stance, order of hierarchy, enemies to overcome, glories to win, orientation, to be happy. All separate standards and honors conglomerated to unknowingly sow ambivalent hatred and a new sort of silent, smutty competition. All so we can inform our children with pride that their course of life doesn't matter. The medal of valor no better than a college degree. Better even, we whisper. All whispers now of sly rank. No feet too small, and no bigger than he of the man abreast. The child wants to be better, and he wants to prove it, and oh, he will find a way to be better, even if he must use the criteria of today. He cares very little about the presumptuous, noble uplifting of silent voices that replaced his great men and hillside cottage dream. This new wallowing is the ideal for the commendation he must contend with. If it is the misery in spite of life, seen without the nuance of age, then it is misery in spite of life that he will most easily embody. This mold will be fit, be it an outcast, vagabond, bum, victim, minority, or oppressor. The options have been presented. The child's contention, his turmoil for understanding, that leap for feeling place at all cost, this stock of dying men. Lost.
Ever since I came to the realization that life has no meaning and there's no purpose to living, life just became so much simpler and better. And
okay, I'm going to respond to this clip, but you got to keep in mind the clip that comes after it, so I'm going to show it before I respond to this one, and then we'll give a later response to the short clip that comes after it. So here,
Life is always going to be complex no matter what. Life is not a simple thing, and it never will be.
I hope that you guys are seeing the issue here. The big contradiction I'm going to point out. Do I even need to point out the contradictions? Is that what we're even here to do, or are we just here to sort of justify actually living? As much as delving into the deeper topics does give us more nuanced ways, better explanations for us to go about talking about why we actually are fine, why we do enjoy living, why there is meaning, why not everything is just dreary and dark. While going into those details, like responding to this, like I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to respond to it, trust me. I mean, the big point is that simply, I don't think at the end of the day, it is that deep. We just have to go that deep for those of us that have already gone that deep. It's sort of like a rescue team jumping down to the sunken submarine to save the sailors. I mean, that's like what is this, some sort of savior complex? I don't know. The point is that when it really comes down to it, all I'm trying to do is to give people reasons why life has meaning by refuting a lot of these points that a lot of people have in their head that are stuck on one or another of these points, because nobody is really trying to offer an explanation as to why they're wrong. And in a huge sense, that does sort of confirm it, right? If nobody is going to directly go up against and address these things, maybe simply because they are poorly structured, they're all over the place, they're a little bit schizophrenic in their reasoning. If nobody's willing to address that, then the people who've already internalized these ideas will have no out. They'll have to go and find the explanations to all these separate things on their own time. And even if somebody does have the propensity to read a shit ton of philosophy, psychology with an open mind, desperately actually trying to find answers and not excuses, even if they have the willingness and ability to do that, it's still going to take them years of their life. Years where somebody could just sit down, bite the bullet, and grit their teeth through something like this. It is difficult. It is difficult to reason around these sort of arguments because they are so simple. They do have big promises. They don't demand a lot from you. They demand literally nothing from you. As in, they demand that you do nothing to raise your expectations and do nothing. And in the convoluted sort of reasoning that they go about doing it in, that, I mean, people aren't going to take the time to refute. Sorry, I'm here. But in going about it, they give themselves a reason why they are moral, why they're actually not bad for thinking this way, actually setting up ways that this kind of thinking is good. And I'm really not, I don't want to argue the morality of all of this, but I don't care what people want out of life. But it does irritate me when people say that they want something out of life and they structure their entire life around not being able to get that thing. It's like somebody who really wants to pass a test, and they'll do anything. Like, they're not even the most, what we would call, good person. Like, imagine that this person does drugs, they have a pet, and they kick it. Right? Let's say this is a high schooler, just generally mad at the world, and they really want to pass this test so then they can pass high school. It's like if we had this kind of person, and they were sitting next to somebody in class during the test, and they could see all of the answers on the other person's test. And the other person was like, yo, dude, you can copy off of me if you want to. And then that person said, you know what? Nah, I can't do that. That's cheating. That's immoral. I'm not going to do that. And then they fail the test and say, oh, there's no way I could have passed that test. I I had to stay true to my principles. And then later in life, they can use that event as a justification for like why they fell off the wagon, morally, so to speak. Where later in life, if they're acting like a scumbag, they'd be like, oh, society held me back. I couldn't get past my schooling or whatnot. I have more respect for people that will cheat to get what they want. I mean, more respect for the ones that are honest about it, but I have more respect for the ones that will cheat to get what they want than the ones who won't do anything to get what they want. Less respect for the ones that will actively avoid doing anything to get what they say that they want. And less respect even for the ones that do so to maintain an image of self, who somehow think that their desires are bad by some sort of moral sense. How there's some sort of greed or pride or something else behind it, while these aspects of the 7 deadly sins are so abundant in the rest of their lives. Just general flippant indulgence that just goes under the radar. We wouldn't even call it that. It's not even a big deal, but the problem is that when it comes to the things that they want out of life, they won't even go after it. Like, there's such an aversion to action because of, oh, what other people will think about it. What other people... I know. The advice, don't care what people think about what you do. Just go after what you want. It's silly, but it also falls on its face because it's too vague. If who you want to be in life is the type of person that won't be satisfied with whatever they achieve unless somebody else or other people are generally content with what you do, then it's fine to have other people judge you. But which kind of person are you okay with being judged as? Because the kind of person that you want to become, the people that will judge that person that you want to become as something negative, those are the ones you have to not care about. Are we going to listen to the types of people that we don't want in our lives? Are we going to listen to their judgment and let it shape our lives? And it's difficult, especially when the opinions of the people that we respect happen to be the types of people that have a very this exact very convoluted back and forth mindset, right? If our immediate circle is built up of people just gathering around misery, and they've got this sort of back and forth mindset, right? You've got this dichotomy of ideas, switching back and forth for the sake of whatever works in the moment, then nothing that you do is going to satisfy them. Everything is going to be a problem, and at the same time, everything is going to be all right. Right? You get this idea where it's like everybody's supportive, like until you succeed, or no one's supportive until you succeed. You know, that kind of mindset. This is what we're talking about. Because everybody wants to feel like the good person in the moment. So if you support somebody, right, you got to support somebody because their idea is good. Or you can't support somebody because their idea is stupid and it's destructive. And then when they do succeed, you have to decry them because now they're greedy. They forgot everybody. They left everybody behind. Or when they succeed, then you have to congratulate them because you saw it in them the whole time, so on and so forth. And it was improbable and impressive. It's this switching and flipping about that really, it drives people away, for one. But if you're in this sort of mindset and you're seeking affirmation on what you're supposed to do from the types of people in this mindset, because you've created a community around this circle jerk of misery, nihilism, whatever you call it, you'll be encouraged to do everything, discouraged to do everything. You'll be congratulated for your success by people you don't want to be congratulated by, and you'll be disparaged for your success by people that you wish you were congratulated by. If you're trying to seek the bad things out of life, like if you're not trying to seek them, if you're focused on them from some sort of like sense of danger, right? You're looking to avoid things constantly, then those are the things that you'll see. You'll see what you fear, and this mindset can see where it will end up in the future. I mean, we are not stupid. If we see the way that other people will react and our reactions to the way that people will react to whatever we do in this mindset,
it will paralyze us. I think that's a problem because no matter what somebody wants to do, they're stuck by the way that they think, by their perceptions of the way that things are going to go. So in the context of this particular clip, we have an interesting situation where our man is trying to convince people of a certain idea so he can bring them closer to build community, camaraderie around this idea. But in so doing, in taking the easy path by sort of jamming together ideologies in a way that makes a grand excuse, he creates a community of people that he probably would not want to be around. Because this creates the sort of type of fake person that we just talked about, like when it comes to creating success in life, right? We hear so much about the fake people that either never believed in somebody and their success, or the ones that were supportive until they got their success, and now they're sitting there like expecting something more. And both sides of it destroy the relationship. And in this situation, it's really fucked up because success is actually enjoying life. The thing that they came together, crowded around, started a hoopla about, that they are setting up to fail. It's the thing that destroys the community. Like if somebody gets what the community is built around, there is almost an instinctual ostracization. Like the identity and community that was built in this group is destroyed by the thing that the group is seeking. And whether or not they're actually, they'll rephrase it like, we have happiness. We have simplicity. It's so much more simple now. Life is so much easier now that we believe this. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. The rephrasing of these ideas does not change what it is, because the idea that life is random and meaningless in the first place is from some lack of purpose, from some broken promise. If somebody finds purpose, if somebody gets what was promised to them, the belief in and of itself crumbles. And the people who are clinging on to that belief as an excuse for wherever they're at in life, they can't mentally handle that. I don't blame them. It's a gut punch to every single one of their excuses. And this is where we have people say, oh, luck is involved. Luck is involved. And then the randomness becomes absolutely necessary to drive home, because it was random that this happened. You couldn't have possibly contributed totally to this outcome that benefits you. I know this not to be the case. I would like to say we know this not to be the case. But a lot of times we say that we're aware of something and we're not. It's just like I say that everything bad that happens to us, we are in part responsible, if not for just being somewhere at the wrong place at the wrong time, we still went there, right? That kind of mentality. Everything good that happens to us also is our responsibility, our fault. It is because of our actions. If we're at the right place at the right time, that isn't luck, that's being at the right place at the right time. You can go to the right place at the right time. You can figure out what the right place is. You can learn what the right time is. And most importantly, only you can be the right person to be in the right place at the right time. You can become the person for the place and time that you most desire. And if you can't, it's a fantasy. And if you believe that you can't, also, it might just be that whole bullshit about looking at things from the wrong point of entry. What is it? Like, when we were talking about how people will look at something and say, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't get there. That's because they're looking at the final step, right? I want to be a millionaire now. Like, I can't become a millionaire because I can't go and do something right now that'll make me a millionaire. But if you take that back, one step further back, another step further back, another step further back, asking yourself, can I do this thing? Can I do that thing? Can I do this thing? Can I do this thing? Well, what about the prerequisites? Can I do this thing? You'll eventually get to something that you can do, and you can do it. So in that sense, it's a fantasy of some made-up idea of how people become millionaires that doesn't exist. It's a fantasy of something that doesn't exist, right? Gods, dead gods, again. Such a strange situation where people have to pretend that it's so certain that it was luck that got somebody there. They're so certain that it was random. They're certain of a process that occurs in reality. And then once the person in the group that gets the thing that the group was built around getting, or built around mourning because nobody can get, they create this sense of luck, right? And then they tear this person down, try to bring them back to where they're at, try to maintain that belief. And a lot of people will do this. A lot of successful people continue to go on to be nihilist, to say that there is no meaning, to say, oh yes, my success is attributed to luck. It has nothing to do with the fact that I was the right person to do this thing and that's why I'm successful, right? It's the other factors that weird luck. It's always the other factors. But ironically, this whole situation that was created to create community because nothing had meaning, because everything was random, they have to maintain that things are certain, ordered, structured even, that even when this happens, your worldview can't change. It is set, because otherwise you're lying. It destroys the community. The thing that was set out to build community destroys community in the end when the success is had. If you're not bitter, you don't have a place. And I mean that as like subliminally bitter. Subliminally bitter? I stumbled over my words there. It's the ignorance around one's own perception of the situation, right? And you have to have that as well on top of it, because you have to say that no, it's more simple, it's more easy, and immediately thereafter go on to say life will never be simple. It is too complex for that. We can't know humans. We can't know human behavior, but we know human behavior enough to tell you that when you have success, it is not your doing. Nothing that you do matters. That's a strong assertion on human nature once you pick it apart. That's being certain about things. That's simplifying things, right? They'll take things and make it both more complex and more simple than it needs to be. I'm going to get really cringe and freaky for a second. When people say that something is misunderstood, it's very clear what they mean. Like that somebody doesn't know enough about a topic to understand it. Understand it. But there's another phenomenon where I think that people misunderstand things, where people pretend to know about something, where people genuinely believe that they know a lot about something, where people might even really, really know a lot about something. But they use it to draw conclusions that aren't beneficial to anything that they want out of life. Quite the opposite, in fact. When people say that nothing can be understood, I hate that sentence, because it can be taken as truth when you consider what they're trying to say, frame as something that needs to be understood, as something that might be understood, right? The cosmic infinity, we touched on that. But the thing is that when you say nothing can be understood, you're also saying, literally, that nothing, the word, the concept, nothing can be understood. That you can understand nothing. And that might be the only thing that we can't understand, because it isn't. And when people say that nothing can be understood, they're referring to things that we don't know, Nothing. Things that don't exist. They're saying you can't understand things that don't exist. No shit. Why the fuck does that matter? On the other hand, I could say everything can be understood, because we know about what we don't know, and we know that there are things that we don't know. Both statements are true. Which one is useful? Because there's a whole lot more of nothing than there is of everything. When you believe in nothing, that is. When you believe in nothing, there's a whole lot that you're missing out on. A whole lot of things that don't fucking exist. Why not instead believe in everything? That we know everything. Technically, I can adjust the definition of everything, right? Because in that category, like I said, things that we don't know, that is something. Things that we know things that we know that we don't know that we don't know. That is something. I can point in the general direction of everything. There is nothing that I can't point in the general direction of. I can point at everything, even if it's a gajillion light years away, and I'm off by a gajillion more, I can still point in its general direction. Even if I'm wrong, where you're like, oh, where is this super solar system that's 5 quintillion zillion miles away, and I point in the wrong direction, so I'd be like, oh, no, that's not it doesn't matter. I can still acknowledge it, even if I don't know about what's in there. I know that I don't know what's in there. This is stupid. This is analytical type bullshit philosophy. This is the stuff I hate. But if we're going to get to this level, and we're going to say, and we're going to use these arguments like, nothing matters, we can't know anything, we can't know what's out there, there's not enough time in the universe to get there. Well, you don't know that, first of all. There's disputes going on about that. The heat death of the universe, we cannot confirm that, by the way. We don't know that. It just may be impossible for everything to die. Second off, if we're going to be using these arguments, I'm going to pull the same bullshit. Everything matters. Everything has meaning. Everything can be known. Do you need to know more? What else do you need to know? If you need to know more, your life has meaning. You can go learn that. That is a purpose. Go do it. Learn that thing. Try to get close to it. If you have the feeling that there is something that you don't know that you need to know, and that's why you say that life is meaningless, no, you're using that as an excuse to not pursue the thing that you want to do. So many dudes be like, I'm never gonna get a girlfriend. Oh, really? That's crazy, dude. That sucks. I can't just say that you're gonna get a girlfriend and suddenly you'll be able to, or you'll be able to process that perception that you can. But trust me, until you're dead, the possibility is there, and you can't prove otherwise until that happens. So which one is more beneficial to believe in? Because saying that you can't get a girlfriend acknowledges both the fact that you don't want to do anything, you don't want the responsibility to not do anything, and you desperately want something that you're not going to go after and get. Which one is the more beneficial thing to believe in? Because both of them are both true and false until it's game over. In that moment, when you make a statement about your perception, the only thing preventing you from moving forward is you. Because if you say, that's impossible, I can't do that, you can't prove that you can't do it until you're dead. You might as well try to prove that you tried instead of spending your whole life trying to prove that you couldn't. Which one is more beneficial to believe in? Which one? Let's acknowledge the fact that he says life becomes more simple when you acknowledge that it's random and meaningless. What does random and meaningless imply? Apart from it's pretty much just that, well, first of all, nothing matters. Second of all, because nothing matters, nothing that you do matters. Which means you're not responsible for anything that you do. Right? People like this say, oh, I don't want to become rich because then if I got rich, then there would be nothing to do. It would be facetious. I'd have no real friends. There'd be this and that and big problems and who cares? Or is it just easier to say, I don't want to put in the effort to get to that point, so I'm going to look at all the negative aspects of that. Fine, dandy, do that. But if that pattern of thought becomes a habit, what happens to everything else that you want to do in life? Right? Because a lot of things require money to do. And if you don't want to become rich because there would be no purpose, and then you think, oh, I would like to do this, it would give me purpose, and then you realize, oh, that'll cost money, I need to become rich, I don't want to become rich, so how am I going to do this thing without becoming rich? Because if I got rich, I wouldn't have a purpose, everything would be meaningless, I wouldn't have real friends, my work would not have value, because people would attribute that to other success. How can I make money off of this purpose that I have? I can't. Sorry, because then if I got... Oh, it keeps repeating itself. It goes back and forth. It's such a fucking mess. Why not just say, it would be nice to be rich, but I don't think I have it in me. I think that there are other things in life that I can enjoy. Frankly, me personally, I want to be rich. I don't think I have it in me to be rich. But I'm hoping that I'll get to a point where I will have it in me. At some point, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? That'd be neat. But for the most part, I like doing things And most of those things don't require a bunch of money. If I come across something that really, really requires a bunch of money, and I do have plans in the future for things that require a lot of money, I'm probably going to get my fucking ass into gear. I'm not that person yet. I'm working on becoming that person, but I can't jump the gun on that. I'm not the person yet that can get my ass into gear. What do you think I'm doing here right now? Removing excuses for myself to do things. This weighs so heavy on my head. All of this stuff, I've thought about it for so long, and I've created such a fucking mess in my head that I need to clean this up. And I've created almost 1,000 pages of just writing about this shit to try to clean it up. And I'm doing this so I can get feedback on it, so I can do it properly in a way that coheres with other people's realities. Because if I want to fix things, if I want to stop making excuses to clean this shit up to get my ass into gear, I'm going to have to deal with other people. And if I'm going to have to deal with other people, I need to know how to interact with them in a way that appeals to both me and them, or to be able to handle that when it doesn't. So I got to do something, but I'm doing it. I'm attempting, I'm trying it. Maybe that isn't what I need to do, but I will figure that out by doing it. That is my responsibility to figure out. Is what I say true? Is what I say false? That's a question I don't know. I don't know the answer to. But I know that it is beneficial for me to believe this because it gives me something to do every day that I'm either very excited about or that I'm not excited about, but and then I kick my ass about it and I get right back into gear. I should, you might say this isn't very productive to spend. Oh, don't spend 2 hours, don't spend 12 hours a day working on projects like this when you don't know that'll help your future. No. Ha, buddy, this is going to help me become president of the United States of America. I'm going to go and migrate to Mars and become the single dictator over there. I'm going to become a Pulitzer Prize winner. Just you wait. I am going to become the coolest motherfucker on the planet. I'm going to become a wisdom spitter. This is going to be the philosophy of the 21st century. It will define the West for at least the next 100 or 200 years. You really think if I can get those delusions inside of my fucking head, do you think I'm going to spend more than 3 hours doing anything unproductive before swinging my ass around to work on some stupid project? Listen, I've read a lot of biographies. The thing is that all great ideas are stupid until you see the result. And failure of one thing, something that is unpromising for a while, that doesn't dictate its entire lifespan. Every success becomes a failure, and eventually every failure becomes a success, unless it's forgettable. Let's try to be remembered, hey? Yeah? Are there flaws in confidence? Are there flaws in pride? Are there flaws in creating a hierarchy that you put people on when you put forth your opinion? Yes, absolutely. But where are we with those ideas right now? We're at a point where people with confidence aren't doing cool shit. They aren't making great things. I mean, some of them are. Who knows? But the point is that people with confidence, the ones with confidence are the ones that fit our stereotype of confidence today. Which, what is that? Annoying. This or that. It's a lower bar of quality. Why not have confidence in something that you think is going to be fucking great, something that you dump your life's work into? I mean, like, let's not have confidence in a drop shipping course, a pump and dump, a get rich quick scheme. No, let's have confidence in our philosophy of the reality that we live in, of our experience. You know what we have a lot of nowadays? We have a lot of irony. What does irony allow us to do? It allows us to say what we believe in without any confidence. When we don't use confidence to say what we believe in, we give ourselves an out. We weren't really serious. And what that also does is devalue our actual beliefs. We're not serious about them, but we are, and we're using irony to convey that because we don't want to get burned, but at the same time, when we're putting forth our beliefs in a way that's not serious, then we stop believing in them as much. We question them. It gives us shaky ground. Life is beautiful. Here's the thing. If I say that life is beautiful and that you're fucking retarded if you think otherwise, guess what? Hang on. And if I spend my entire life just banging my head against that point, even if I use the stupidest points imaginable, as long as those are things that I personally believe, and you say the opposite, delving into this and that, no cosmic injustice, and there's so much blank space out there, we're insignificant. Mute point, sorry, you're stupid anyways. If we are in that argument until we're dead, if I sit here and jabber just about this, and I'm having a fucking blast doing it, if we're in this situation, guess who's going to be in the better mindset when the end comes? If we do this for 90 years, I somehow make it to 111 years old, who knows? If we do this for 90 years and the argument ends because I died, guess who's in the better mindset? Guess who died happy? It doesn't even matter what my living conditions are. I could be in the fucking projects. It does not matter. If I believed in this enough to jabber about it until I died of old age, I'm going to die happier than you. I'm going to die more jovial than you. I am going to have mountains and mountains of proof that we live in a wonderful world. And simply because of the point that I know that I would die happier than somebody that would argue to me till death on this topic, simply because of the point that I could die happier, I know I'm right. I know I'm correct. It doesn't matter if I have to switch up the entire wording and syntax of my philosophy 1,000 times. If I can do that and it still works to get me to die happy, I fucking won. I'm playing a winning game. You can't not lose against me. Because even if you win, even if I die and you get in the last laugh, it's going to be a bitter, resentful laugh. Laughing at a smiling man who only died once. That is something I can be certain of. Is that if I believe the way that I do now when I die, I'll be happy. If the thing that you're certain in is the fact that nothing matters, that life is meaningless and random, at best, you'll die with mixed feelings, not knowing something, having something that you would have rather have done. There is nothing that I would have rather done with my life than everything that I've already done. Because there's nothing else that I can do. I don't believe in nothing. I don't believe in the things that don't exist. I believe in everything that exists. If it takes delusion to get to this point, so be it. But we define delusion. Let's assume that I'm not schizophrenic, that I'm not bipolar, that I don't have a psychiatric condition that has psychiatric delusions, and people call me delusional because I choose to look at the good things in life as well as the bad things, and they see that as ignoring the bad things. If they say that I'm delusional, they are just as delusional. We're all delusional in the sense that we try to justify our beliefs. What matters is what happens. What matters is how we feel, where we're at when we're there. Do you want to have the memories of arguing about why life doesn't matter? I think that's fucking hilarious. Guess what? If this guy ever finds this 12-hour video on him about some random, sort of schizo acting, specifying, motherfucker, just going off on him in completely unrelated tangents, this is related, but it seems unrelated, he's going to remember probably for the rest of his life the contention that he made that life is random and meaningless. That's sad. Does he want that to be a sad memory? He gets to choose that. But guess what? I get to look back on this moment. I get to say, I made a 12-hour video on some guy that was complaining about life. And I just laughed at the expense of him looking back at that memory for 12 hours straight. Do you know how good of entertainment this is for me right now? It's hilarious. You know, one of the problems with academic topics, literary achievement, sitting down and writing, is that you don't get the when you're trying to express something, when you're trying to put something together to map it out, it's painful. It's really hard. It's not fun trying to prove a point. in terms of, oh, let's follow these trains of logic, this and that and that, and we have to make sure that nothing contradicts the logical mathematics, the analytical philosophy, the line up the epistemology of this and that, and no, the bullshit. It sucks. It is really hard fitting inside of a framework. That's why I don't like math anymore. I used to like it as a kid, but not anymore. Do you think that any of those people could have talked about their own life philosophy that is structured and put into mathematical formats and all that bullshit? Do you think they could have, at 21 years old, talked about it for 12 hours straight? Or would they have waited until they had gotten their tenure as a professor and then talked about somebody else's opinion for an hour a day, getting paid to do it? Probably, like, do you have an original idea that is not your doctorate on why Hegel was probably influenced by the writings of Saint Augustine or something? That's actually, whoa, that actually sounds likely. I'm sorry. Those people are not having fun. Those people are ascetics that that make themselves suffer so then they can have this illusion of truth. When they don't create anything, they follow a doctrine. Not one that they created, one that they reinterpret. It's as if they're sticking to it point by point, and the only way that they can have an original idea is by reinterpreting the points, by reinterpreting the reality that they live in, which really reflects well with the archetype of the dead man, who does not seek new things, does not create new things, but reinterprets things, looks at past memories, hindsight. They live in hindsight. It's like as if a moment happens, they wait 10 minutes until it passes, look back on the event, and then evaluate it as if they were living through it right then, so they can have the correct conclusion to it, which matches up with the rest of their previous opinions, and then they modify any of the previous opinions that conflict with that. It's like a program that sifts through everything that happens and readjusts them, and they set exactly what they want the previous moment to be interpreted as, and force everything to be reevaluated. But at some point there's too much. It hits an error block. You can't remember that far back. In this particular moment you forget about this thing and it conflicts, and suddenly later in the future you get to a place where that is brought up. Those two situations are brought up and you're left tongue-tied, embarrassed. It sucks. Why not simply not try to follow the rules, but try to follow your intuition? Say, this is somebody that I want to be. These are the principles that I follow. And then attempt to live as that person. Accept the mistakes that you make along the way. Don't try to reinterpret them as if they actually weren't, as if it was somebody else's fault. Take the blame. Take responsibility for everything. Take responsibility for other people's mistakes. They'll thank you. They'll be more inclined to apologize because they'll feel bad, because otherwise they would have assumed that it was somebody else's fault. And when you take responsibility for something they know that they did, they can't do that anymore, because they realize, oh, this person just took responsibility for something that wasn't their fault. That was my fault. Do you think they're willing to do it again? It's take responsibility. Nothing bad comes out of it except for the moment. We used to call this integrity, a clean conscience. One of the problem with academia that I was alluding to earlier is that it follows this pattern of behavior, this follow the bullet points, but you can change the bullet points. You can change them. If you do enough research, if you put in your time, you can change the bullet points, but only if you reevaluate them, because the original message is correct. And then we have to reevaluate the original message in so many different ways to be able to actually change it, right? Because you have to adjust it in a manner slightly different. Enough that is true to the original, and not so much that it's just a little bit different, so then it's true to you. And then you die because you spent your whole life in the tenure office trying to adjust a single line of tax code, basically. By following the rules. Good job. And now, if you want it tweaked a little bit more to be more true to your philosophy, you'll have to hope that the person after you does that. Because if too much change happens too much quickly, there's too much scrutiny. Scrutiny. Yeah, I got it right the first time. What the fuck? Progress is slow. Do what you want. If it feels right, if it feels genuinely right in the sense that I will not regret this in the future, right? That kind of right, do it. And if it still feels right afterwards, like you didn't do anything bad, guess what? There's probably a reason for that. You don't have to make up excuses for things that feel proper. I feel as though nobody is touching on the things that really matter to me. And one of the things that I see a lot of novelists do, like pop philosophy motherfuckers do a lot, is they'll present an idea, like a vague, abstract idea, like, oh, wouldn't the world be cool if this? And then they say, that'll be the work for somebody else. We'll all have to come together and rise up and do this thing. There will have to be a field of study. Somebody else is going to have to do the research on this. Do things for me on this vague notion. I promise you, the work that I haven't done that I'm asking you to do has definitely proven that this will work in the future. Oh, but those people, they want their own philosophy thing. They want their own utopia. People do this because they're scared. If they say something too radical, if they say something that is too out there, too specific, too direct, it hurts the feelings of the people that could change through words if they got their feelings hurt a little bit. If they're not willing to take the risk for their own philosophy, they do it because they're not willing to take that risk. They do it because they're scared that if they make a statement and they don't have the credentials to back it up, they're going to take flack and then people won't believe in it. And they want other people, they need the social acceptance first. Like, guys, believe in this, show me that you can believe in this, and then I'll work out the details later, or you can work them out, and then we'll agree on it, and it'll be a cool philosophy deal. Yeah? Ya dig? No. Fucking do it. If it doesn't work, who cares? At least you could say you tried. I don't consider this trying when somebody puts out a book about some vague Buddhist idea or like Stoic idea framed in the way of the modern world, and it doesn't fucking say anything. It just basically says, "Oh, do whatever you're doing, but just believe in these coined terms that I came up with, and tell your friends about it so they can buy my book, and maybe eventually we'll get to a world that I believe that will be good for you, so then you won't have to make any decisions, and you'll be happy all the time." I don't consider that to have tried. It tried to do something else, and props to the people who do these kind of novels for the money. Holy shit, that was hard. Why would you do that for the money? Point being, most people don't do it for the money. Most people do it because they want this thing, and they'll get very bitter because they didn't actually try, and people will tell that. The reaction will reflect that. Nothing in the world will change because they're not willing to take any steps that could actually change the world. Say what you believe in. Do what you want. The results will tell the story. The reactions that people have will influence you, and you'll know as a person if it influences you in a certain way, in a negative way. You'll either have to evaluate if that was a valid reaction, or if you need to reevaluate how you think about other people. Because if you do something and it turns out to be fucked up, you will know through people's reactions. If you genuinely believe that something is fucked up and people tell you that something that you didn't think was fucked up is fucked up, you'll figure out your beliefs. That's what I'm trying to say. The feedback that you get will unearth your beliefs. It's trying to ignore those things. A lot of people are really sensitive. A lot of people can't ignore what other people think about them. But what are they trying to find from other people? Well, they have to go and get that feedback. Good or bad, it will benefit in the long term. This is how you find yourself, by doing things that you presume that you want to do, by believing in things that you presume that you believe in. You'll discover if you actually believe in it or not, and that's where you get your truth, your gods, whatnot. We shan't make the mistake, however, of trying to deny those feelings, of trying to deny beliefs that we feel some sort of way about, that we try to, when we try to ignore the obvious warning signs, the red flags, the things that our intuition does tell us to avoid or doesn't tell us to do and we do anyways, I think those are mistakes. Because typically when I follow that pattern of behavior, I find myself in shitty situations doing things I don't want to do, wasting a whole bunch of time pretending to be somebody that I'm not. Especially when I didn't know who I am, especially because I still don't know who I am. Who I am in that moment was not somebody who wanted to be there and I was pretending to want to be there. I was pretending like I had to be there. I didn't. If you're uncomfortable somewhere, is that uncomfortable in the moment, enduring for something that you care about? Do you have something to care about that would allow you to endure things that make you uncomfortable? Or are you uncomfortable because there's nothing there for you? Make a decision and move on. You'll find out. If you stay in a place that you hate, not knowing why you're there, either find out why or bail. Both things are difficult, but do something. Don't stay in that limbo of not knowing why you're uncomfortable. Do anything. Figure it out. That is what we're trying to avoid, is nothing. Purgatory, emptiness, being a husk of a person, a dead man. And the real issue that I'm trying to point out with that last clip, the clip that I'm responding to, is the fact that he's in this sort of limbo. And I'm going to replay the clip so you remember what we're responding to.
Ever since I came to the realization that life has no meaning and there's no purpose to living, life just became so much simpler and better. And life is always going to be complex no matter what. Life is not a simple thing and it never will be. Life just became so much simpler and better. Life is not a simple thing and it never will be.
Once you overcomplicate things, and to justify it, you have to say that it has to remain complicated, it becomes very, very difficult to uncomplicate it. But that doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you kind of miss out on the contradictory benefits of having multiple beliefs. And that's kind of sketchy. Like, what I mean is that if you believe in two contradicting things, they both have upsides. But then in acknowledging that you have the whole belief, you have to also acknowledge that it sort of stands against this other thing. And if you have two of those and they stand against each other, and to simplify things and cohere things and make things make sense, you have to acknowledge that if they do contradict each other, then you kind of have to start cutting things out. Like, for example, utopian visions of heaven on earth, have always incredibly grisly processes that need to be taken to get there. But if you're also against those things, those grisly processes, then it remains nothing but a fantasy. And that you putting yourself in limbo where you want one thing, but you also want to believe that it's possible without another thing, puts you in the limbo of fantasy. You can't act toward the utopia because you have to figure out how to do it without killing everybody that doesn't have the same opinion as you. Or you have to figure out how to get universal basic income without over-incentivizing freeloaders to the point where absolutely nobody is contributing and it eventually collapses. Or you have to figure out how to do, or before you can do communism, you have to actually figure out how to do central planning and create the super algorithm that can actually process the billions of market values on things and give people basically the exact same standard of life as capitalism, except that all their finances are handled by the states, or some algorithm, or some goodwill. How do we overcome human goodwill, right? You have to, people are trying to solve insurmountable problems before they can act on their vision of utopia, before they can actually act on utopia, and then they say that somebody else is holding them back because of this and that, and really it's just human nature, the difference of opinions, the fact that people conflict on different things, and that confrontation is necessary, and we need conflict, we need pressure to be able to want to do things, we need this and that, and to remove that would get rid of the need
like to get rid of pain would be to get rid of pleasure, and then we wouldn't be able to maximize pleasure if we got rid of pain, because then neither would exist, and then we're in the pure indulgence, like Wall-E dystopia, right? Imagine that, but in a realistic scenario, because how many sedative chemicals do you need to hook up to people to actually get them to just kind of not do anything and say that it's the greatest thing ever? We could hypothetically uncomplicate things by just admitting the massive fucking flaws in the system and creating a new system based upon the intentions that we had with the old system, instead of sticking to the system instead of the intentions, and figuring out how to best meet those quote-unquote good intentions in a way that would actually make sense, right? Like communism because people don't want to work jobs they hate. Communism because there is a class oppression and there's a hierarchy. Communism because we need to treat our fellow man better. Right, what is a system that could actually address those things that doesn't involve gulags? And every single fucking tanky will just come at me and say that they have the solution for that. But again, okay, when I'm president, I will give you guys an entire state. All right? And you guys can try it out and fail and try it again and fail and try it again and fail. And that'll be the communist state. And you guys can manage it. Anybody who believes that communism will keep working, yes, you can go there. And if it actually works out, then fantastic. Congratulations. We'll all adopt it. Yay, yippee. But how can we uncomplicate the situation? Because we've created too many variables that now require to be proven to be true, and there's just so much time in explaining these factors and then explaining why we could do it this way instead of that way, and adding even more factors in, to the point where it's so overcomplicated that nobody can get it, and the education period is so long that it could never hope to get into the Overton window and actually make any progress whatsoever. Life is more simple if you believe what I believe, but what I believe is that nothing can be simple. Right? And then you have to define that, no, it's actually just more simple, right? Because if you believe what I believe, first you go down this path where you have to acknowledge that it's complicated, meaningless, random, and this magnitude of other factors that just says that there's really nothing going on here for us, and we have to really explain it to people to get into their head that nothing matters, and no matter what you do, it's meaningless. And then we have to explain to them why each one of those factors is actually a good thing, and give them the behavioral tools to integrate that into looking at life as though life is meaningless, and then somehow figure out a way to have quote-unquote meaning in waiting to die. And it's this whole weird thing, and that if you believe this and get to this point, then it gets more simple from the fact that we overcomplicated, right? Because we complicated it in the first place by saying that there's no meaning, and now there is meaning, but it's not meaning. It's just a simplification on the thing that we complicated, which is still more complicated and convoluted than just believing otherwise. So now we're here, right? There's an explanation for everything, and me saying that it's purgatory and that this view is stupid has an explanation as well, but that doesn't change the fact that it still makes more people miserable. And even if you get to the end of life with this viewpoint, right? If you say that you can't prove that this viewpoint is correct until you die, and therefore nobody can actually confirm it, then it's kind of pointless. But I mean, my alternative is that if you believe that life is great for no apparent reason, just because, and you get to the end of your life, and then you think that life is great, that was fun, all right, goodbye, off to wherever afterlife you believe in or whatever. Guess what? You die thinking, that was good, not, all right, now it's going to get good, which I think is a net positive. But if your belief is based upon the fact that you shouldn't do anything, you shouldn't make choices because there's no meaning, not being able to make choices and not being able to do anything, that kind of means that you can't prove otherwise, right? You're setting up conditions for creating the reality that you're telling people to believe in
in the first place? Do you know? That's so hard to explain. If you don't make choices, if you don't act, you can't confirm the outcome of the experience regardless. So if you don't act, you can't confirm that it's random or meaningless. But if you believe that everything is random and meaningless, meaning that you shouldn't act, means that you shouldn't seek proof otherwise, that you can't go over to seek proof otherwise. This is some nuclear level, fucking unintentional, subliminal gaslighting that leads, just gaslight. I was going to say it leads people to believe that they came up with the idea themselves, but that is partially gaslight. I don't know. Like, it's really, really intense. It gives him a response, an excuse to everything. Even if I say it's gaslighting, even if I say all of these things that I've just said, right? Even if I say that he never sticks to a belief, because of the way that things are set up, he could simply respond to all those exact comments and give the refutation that he actually isn't doing that. No matter what you say that he's doing. If it's painted in a negative light, he can say that he's not doing it. Or he could give a justification to why he is doing it and that it actually doesn't contradict with something else. And, right, everything just sort of fits. He has to, like, both simultaneously believe in something absolutely and can't be certain about it. Yeah, fine. Whatever. But he's using that to stay in the purgatory that he's complaining about. If he doesn't stick to anything, he'll never know which of those things that he truly believes in. It's the action, the defense of one's own belief with absolute honesty. That's what will allow us to figure out who we are by, like, mending the plot holes, the weak points, which don't get exposed until we allow them to. Because if we don't acknowledge our flaws in thinking and acting, then they don't exist to us. They're not real. If we can't acknowledge them, if they're not in our perception, if we deny them from our perception, then they don't exist. And guess what happens with things that don't exist? We can't fix them. They still exist to others. Our flaws still exist to others. And because we can't really ignore others besides by, like, dismissing them as wrong and their whole worldview is wrong and making ourselves lonely in, like, a hostile world by creating a hostile world by saying that people that disagree with us are incorrect. And even though we act in the same way every single time and we still get the same outcome, it's still somebody else's fault because it's always somebody else's fault, then it's very likely that we're being dishonest about it, about something. If something is repeatedly happening to us, an experience, or if we just keep having a certain perception about the world that is negative, like if we do something, something keeps happening and therefore we just shouldn't even try, like it's always somebody else's fault, then there is absolutely something about ourselves, our beliefs, our actions that we're ignoring. This is insanity. Like, you could constantly try new things, but if the method of approach is always the same, right? This is how a lot of people get through this, is that they say that they're always trying new things, that they say that they're always doing something more, but they approach it in the same way. Like, if we still remain the person who will not acknowledge their part in the failure, or downplay the failure, or simply forgive themselves for the failure, or say that the failure is not a big deal, or remain someone who will place the expectation that somebody else should have picked up the slack on that failure, therefore it's their fault, blaming literally anything instead of acknowledging their own part in it, right? If that stays the same, then they will always reach the conclusion that there is something completely wrong with the world, something missing, something taken from them. A lot of people subvert, like, the whole, oh, I'm not doing the same thing over and over. Look, I tried. Look, I prepared for this. Look, I did this and that. But they approach it with the mindset that nothing is their fault. Or they'll take fault for something smaller. Or they'll do this or that. Or they'll say that the fault didn't actually exist. But somehow, some way, if they're in that mindset where they're doing that, they're doing the same thing. But they can use that as an excuse. Right? If we feel as though something's been taken from us, if we feel as though we're missing out on something, chances are that we are, And the first thing that we're likely to be missing out on is the fact that we have to create what's missing. We have to fill that void. If we feel like something is missing from the world, that literally means it doesn't exist. Like a part of our future, if we feel like something's missing, right, in our past, we feel like we should have done something. That's something you had to do, something you had to create, something you will have to create. We're missing out on the perception that we can fill the void. We're missing out on acknowledging the fact that we can fill the void, that we have to. And the second thing that we're missing is the version of ourselves that we can become or could become if we let the moment just slip away, right? Somebody that we could have become to do something. If that slips away, then we suddenly realize it and we're bitter about it. If we feel as though we are missing something, it is just very likely that we're not yet the person capable of getting that thing, creating that feeling. Cut it. Creating that feeling to the dead man's mind that somebody else is responsible for getting that thing for us, right? We're responsible for becoming the person who can fulfill our desires. And it is not the object of our desires, the thing of the pursuit which will bring the satisfaction. It is like, it's pretty much the conquest of becoming the person capable of attaining that thing which brings the satisfaction. Becoming the person who knows themselves capable of becoming, more or less. The person who deserves the thing after they get it. Right? Because the only way that we can really deserve something is if we are the person who is capable of getting it. If we just say that we deserve it and somebody else gets it for us, then we don't really deserve it. We can't say that we deserve anything that we don't have, because if we don't have it, we don't deserve it. And if we do deserve it, then we have to go out and get it. And if we can't go out and get it, we have to become the person who can. And then we still have to go out and get it. And then only after you get it, do you become the person who actually deserved to get it. Right? Because we can't suppose things. Things aren't as they are supposed to be. We can't presuppose these things into existence. We can't say that we deserve it because we can't accurately evaluate ourselves. We have a conflict of interest here. Somebody else has the thing that we deserve. We have to go and get it. It exists somewhere. We have to create it. We have to fill that void. That person that deserved it created the circumstance. The dead man's whole shtick is that he mopes around and says that he deserved something that was taken from him by circumstance. Right? He says that it was taken from him by circumstance. Circumstances that he did not create. Right? That's true. Right? Oh my gosh. I've been wronged by the world because of circumstances that I had no part in. Right? That's where they're correct, technically. But you could have had a part in those circumstances. That's the problem. You can play a part in your circumstances. In fact, you do. Inaction is something. Not doing anything is something. Right? If you did not play a part in your circumstances, that means you let your circumstances happen to you. That is negligence. You are complicit through negligence. He will say he did not create the circumstances and therefore he's not responsible, but he will not say that he was responsible for creating the circumstance. That's a big problem, right? Remember ages ago where I had the metaphor where a chicken is laid from an egg, taking a step out of the process, right? Let's say it's a 3-part process. Chicken lays egg hatches, out comes a chicken, right? Let's say that the man is the first chicken. He lays the egg, but he restructures it into the most absurd fucking statement saying that the egg laid the chicken. He removes himself from the equation, right? The first chicken, the one that laid the egg that hatched the other chicken, that one's removed. So we have to have something creating the source of the problem, right? The egg is the source of the problem, the circumstance. Man, circumstance, outcome. Chicken, egg, chicken. But since there has to be a cause, right, he's got to insert that weird little word, laid. And so we get a statement where it's like, the egg laid the chicken. The circumstance caused the outcome. Right? On paper, it makes some sense, even if you're like, wow, that's a weird usage of language. Eggs don't lay chickens. Yes, but, chickens come from eggs, so therefore it's a valid statement. circumstances cause outcomes. Yes, that makes sense. But what caused what allowed the circumstance? What could have changed the circumstance? You remove you from the equation. You can't change it going forward. You can't do anything because it's just circumstances and outcomes. And what are you doing? Just sitting there, standing there, whatever, doing nothing, waiting to die, allowing these circumstances to happen, laying the eggs that lay the chickens, apparently. There's a lot going on under the surface here. Like everything that we've discussed about God's, where he pulls up and denies and affirms two separate stances, it all gives him the benefit of observing reality in some sort of staggered hindsight. Like we said, memories have become tools. Ideas have become tools. The incentives are in place. They're obvious, and we do not want to admit it because then we have to explain ourselves, and explaining ourselves is hard because it becomes a mess, a convolution. There's an excuse for everything, and then we have to refute that. And by the time we return to the original point, then it's changed somehow. But that's fine because it actually aligns with something, and it's whatever. It's easy to fit in with other people when we agree with everyone who will agree with us, and we won't agree with anybody who doesn't, regardless of if there's overlap there. The incentives to lie to ourselves, to have some sort of community, some sense of being understood, we get that at the price of not being able to understand ourselves, at the price of not really knowing what other people understand in us. Right? We say that we agree with somebody says they agree with us, but we put forth a view that would have people agree with us. That was the whole point of the view. So, well, what do they really understand in us, besides that we want to be understood? So in that sense, then we discover that we're always a little bit misunderstood, which helps out the original method, allows us to modify our beliefs on the fly if somebody points out to us, like the convolutions, the blunders that we're making. But doing that only pushes people further away from us because they'll realize that they can't understand us. The quickest way to find orientation and purpose is also the easiest way to destroy it. Like the quickest way to find community is inserting yourself into a bunch of people that have beliefs that you say that you align with, but you do that to align with them, so you don't actually know your own beliefs. So then you're always a little bit misunderstood. So then they can't actually know you. So then it pushes them away, and thus the community falls apart, right? You see that? It's also the quickest way to convince ourselves that the community never existed in the first place. It kind of didn't because we lied. It's an easy way to justify the fantasy that we believe in. It's an easy way to justify that the fantasy is the only way that these things could work out. The easiest way to convince ourselves that we were promised the object of desire which we can only perceive in our fantasy. And because we have to justify the fantasy of some sense of community, we have to, and community can't work in this world, and community is reevaluated as some sort of happiness or meaning because other people define us. Pretty much they get to write the book once we're dead. Then it can't happen in this world, and therefore it has to happen in another world, which might occur, can't prove otherwise, once we're dead. So therefore it can only happen once we're dead. Therefore it can only happen really in fantasy because we can't actually prove it. And what the fuck? It's a mess. All of these little beliefs, who cares if they're true? All of these little beliefs to lead you to the idea that you can only really, truly be happy. The only good things happen after we're dead. What a miserable fucking worldview. You've created the perception for yourself that you can't do anything to be happy except wait to die. And then tell people the same thing so you can have community. But guess what? You're giving that perception to other people. People will take it. It's easy. What happens to those people? They wait to die. Those people influence other people to wait to die. They influence other people to influence other people
that they can't do anything, that they can't be happy. What do we call something that spreads from one person to another person to another person to another person to another person until it's spreading outwards faster and faster, and it has a negative effect on them? We call that a virus, like a viral infection. It's a contagion of some sort, and it's having a net negative effect. I mean, it would have a net negative effect if you convinced one person that they only could not do one thing that would make them happy. You've lowered the overall amount of happiness in the world, right? The hedonic calculus that antinatalists live by, where they're like, oh, we have to maximize pleasure in the world, and because there's more pain in life than pleasure, and there's a complete absence of pain in the void, like because there's more pain in life than pleasure, then it's more of a balance if you just don't exist at all. That falls on its face, because to live, to be somebody who's a sad Andy, is to, like, to have these beliefs is to increase the amount of pain in the world, to reduce the amount of pleasure, right? By believing in this belief, you reduce the amount of pleasure, increase the amount of pain by existing. That's insane. People will say that they have to be authentic, to not put on a front, right? Don't push down your emotions, don't bottle it up, or whatever. They say that it'll cause more problems to not put forward your feelings, but you can put forward your feelings in a positive way. You can put them forward in a way where it doesn't perpetuate the whole shtick. And guess what? If you can manufacture happiness for somebody else, that actually bounces back to you. One of the most hated pieces of advice that has been given for a while now is just smile more. Have you tried smiling more? The reason why it's hated so much is because it works so well. If you smile at somebody, they'll smile back, and then you'll actually smile. And it's not just smiling, right? Because if we just did that, then it'd be empty and it's one thing, and that doesn't work long term. If you create a good environment for people and then allow them to do the same for you, because their life is bettered because of you, and then you feel good about that, and then your life is better, you can manufacture happiness. Happiness is not something that just comes every once in a while. People treat happiness as though it's something that can only be given to you through circumstances, right? You can't play any part in it. It either happens or it doesn't. And if you're depressed, you can't experience happiness for some fucking reason, or less than other people. But that's due in part to our perceptions. Depression is like a disease of perceptions. We see everything as negative, right? I've seen these studies where it says that depression allows people that have depression simply, quote unquote, see the world more for what it is. I would say that people with depression are very good at noticing all the bad things around them, and terrible, absolutely awful at seeing the good things around them. It's just one different type of perception. They're even, and the reason why this skill is attributed to them is because they're also able to see the good things, and they're also able to see that they're not allowing those good things to happen to them, to affect them in a good way. They are able to see their own self-sabotage of not being able to experience happy moments because of their own behavior. Now, what do you get when you take that same sort of type of person and you remove just that one ability to see their own part played in the situation? You get an incomplete worldview. You're missing the most important aspect, which is yourself. Then you can't change anything. I mean, that's why a lot of people also get stuck in depression, is because there's probably something somewhere down the line that they're not acknowledging about themselves. I mean, the only way to get out of depression really is to somehow convince yourself that you're not depressed. To quite literally stop being depressed. How do you beat depression? Stop being depressed. How do you do that? I don't fucking know, dude. It's a different story for everybody. You can't follow the path that somebody else took. You came up with your own conclusions in your head that made you see the world in a negative light. You'll have to reverse or reconcile with something that nobody else is. Yes, you're special in that way. You're not special in the fact that you can't get out of it. You can. The tragic reality is that the only way to cure depression is to just stop being depressed, bro. It hurts. It's painful. Nobody likes hearing that. Everybody who gets out of it has to come to their own conclusion to figure out why something has actually changed that isn't just their perception, but it is just their perception about something else that they changed, and now they beat it. Yippee. It's all a game of perception. How do you play that game, though? Fantastic question. Again, nobody knows your mind but you. Nobody can know it better than you. Nobody will be able to do more about your life than you. And nobody but you can perceive the world in a manner in which it benefits you. All in all, you're responsible for everything that happens to you. Even if everything that happens to you is just life. Life happens to you. Yeah, but you let that happen. There's really no way out of this. You couldn't have prevented something that happened to you. Okay. But you can prevent it from affecting you. Forever. What, you have a terrible tragedy in your life happen? You can let it affect you your whole life, or you can let it affect you a decade, or you can let it affect you for 5 years, or you can let it affect you for 3 years, or you can let it affect you for 2 years. You can whittle that down. If you don't, you are responsible for allowing it to continue to affect you. Somewhere along the line, you can take responsibility and make things better. If you believe in purgatory, you'll remain in purgatory. Choose something, move on, figure out how it affected your life. You can only get closer to knowing who you want to become by choosing the things that happen to you. Once you choose something, you know exactly what you're responsible for, and you don't have to dig for it. Once you know that, you can know what you did wrong, you can know what you did right, you can know how you feel about it, you can know who you want to be a little bit more.
Ever since I came to the realization that life has no meaning and there's no purpose to living, life just became so much simpler and better. And
what's crazy is that we've been on this for an hour and a half already or something like that, and I've still got more shit to say. Buckle in. It's just some general remarks. We're gonna wrap it up, though. Sorry, I couldn't give you guys more, but, we gotta keep it short. So basically, on the first point of contention, the assertion that life is simpler because you believe that it's random and meaningless, I mean, let's get into some technicalities here. All right? Yeah. If life is random and meaningless, then what's the only thing that you can do? Well, wait to die. That's simpler, isn't it? It's certainly easier, but you have to go about a lot more complex reasonings within your own brain to really rationalize that to yourself. So is it simpler, like we talked about it before, or is it really just a better way easier, simpler way to make more excuses? Because once you've got that rationalization out of the way, you can make more excuses. So before we go on to the next bit, directly responding to what he said, general remarks, it's not simpler, it's just more simple to make excuses once you've overcomplicated it. Because a complex system has 1,000,001 loopholes. And because we're also going to address that life is meaningless and random, right? Because he keeps saying that. I think it's as good a time as any to address the whole idea of meaning, right? People like to ask the question, what's the meaning to life? Right? The great big funny answer is that it's 42. People like making that assertion. People like making that joke because of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But unfortunately, what a lot of people also forgot about that movie, is that at the end of it, the computer that generated the answer to the question, what is the meaning of life, it also said, yeah, well, that's a disappointing answer. The real problem was the question. It's a stupid question. What is the meaning of life? The searching for meaning in life is redundant. You're in life already. Things will only mean something to you if you need that thing for something that you want. A brick is meaningless without the desire for a wall. The wall is meaningless without another brick. The pile of bricks and the desire for a wall are meaningless without the mortar. And then, without the man, and without his knowledge, and then without his will, they're all meaningless also. If you don't have all of those things, it's all meaningless. Things only have meaning when you put them into place. And when you approach things by looking for the meaning in things, like, what can I do with this thing? What are all the situations that I can propose with this amalgamation of objects, with this amalgamation of experiences, circumstances, whatever? You end up with an unlimited amount of choices at your disposal. And that's the way that things go if you're looking for meaning in life. This is where it fucks you. Is because if you're looking for meaning in all of these different things, you're just stunned by the amount of options you can't choose because you're always missing out on a million more things all at once if you choose any of them. Now, if you approach life and you say, I don't give a shit about the meaning. That's not the object of my pursuit, right? That's not what I'm pursuing. I'm not pursuing some abstraction of meaning. If you go at life through that lens, and you just arrive in situations, you say, I'm going to go here, do this thing. Suddenly, you arrive somewhere, and there's things to do. You can find things to do in that place. And if you think, okay, what can I do? Suddenly, things start having specific meanings in their context, right? If you go to a fair, you show up, you say, I'm going to go to the fair. You show up to the fair. Suddenly, there are things with significance. I want to ride the Ferris wheel, you say in that moment. And you go up on the Ferris wheel and spin around. And you go, yay, that was fun. And then you get off, and you start looking at other things, and they have significance, meaning. Those two are interchangeable. Let's use them interchangeably. But what if you said, before you were at the fair, I want to ride the Ferris wheel. And so you make plans with your friends to go to the fair. You go to the fair, you get there, you ride the Ferris wheel. Suddenly, after that, nothing else has meaning. Nothing else has significance because you went and did the thing that you came to do. I mean, sure, you can go and enjoy other things and whatnot, but you set up your expectations saying, I want to ride the fucking Ferris wheel. Now, it seems pretty inconsequential, but what happens when you look at life like this? What happens if you look at life as though you need to pursue meaning? Well, you go and approach life looking for meaning, and because that's not something you can find unless you're doing something, or if you look at it and you say, what's the meaning of this piece of lumber? And there's just a trillion billion things you can do with a piece of fucking lumber. Okay, so in one sense, on one hand, you're stun locked because of the options, and on the other, if you're looking for the absolute meaning, the absolute certainty of life, you're also kind of screwed, because guess what? If you find the answer, there's nothing left to do. And what happens usually is people either assign meaning to everything through a god or something, or they write it off. They say life is meaningless. At least in the religious side, maybe suddenly there's no point in doing things that go against your God. But if you say that life is meaningless, you end up at the conclusion that this guy's at, which is, okay, right, because he searched for meaning and he found it, and the meaning was that it's meaningless. Right, as soon as you put a one big blanket assertion over the world, there's nothing left to do in it. And then you arrive at a point where you say, okay, the only thing logically left to do is to wait to die. Fuck. That fucking sucks. You're gonna wait to die? Whoa. Awesome. Yeah, that's the logical conclusion. Do you want a fucking you want a logic degree? Phenomenal. But what happens if you made a mistake in the equation to begin with? What if to solve the equation, when you copied it over to your fucking scratch piece of paper, you wrote it down wrong? What if it was the wrong equation that you wrote down? Well, I guess you'll find out when you're dead. That's a pretty fucking miserable algorithm. And, okay, we beat this horse dead. But basically, if there is no reason to do anything, there's probably a reason why we think that way. Why we're unable to find meaning, significance. We're unable to find significance. The meaning of something is limited to what we wish to do with it. If we wish to do nothing, we will see no meaning in life. If we attribute no significance to events in the world without our desires, everything will appear random. There is no mistake in his choice of words. And when I say this, when I say this next sentence, and I use the word nothing, I am referring to nothing as a concept, the idea of nothing, the very conceptual image of the idea of nothingness. If you want nothing, nothing will have meaning. The idea of nothing will have meaning. As a result, nothing will be seen. You will see nothing. You will look at what is not, things that don't exist. Everything will appear random because nothing is certain. Nothing is something that can be certain. Literally, nothing is known. Everything is uncertain. There's a reason why we have these phrases we can make these phrases in our language. The sad part is that when you actually look at the meaning of the statements, they mean humongous things. Well, I would say that another one of the issues with trying to find the meaning, quote unquote, in life is that we're working with abstract words that mean an insane amount of things. And when we do that, without really considering the scope of it, we sort of subconsciously allow ourselves to use the other definitions without even really acknowledging them. Because when I say that nothing will have meaning, I quite literally mean that something that does not exist will have meaning. This is a fantasy. That is a fantasy. I don't know if that's as crazy to you guys as it is to me, but if I say nothing has meaning, I'm saying something that does not exist has meaning. It's just shorthand. That is a logical sentence I can write in English. Nothing has meaning. Problem is that when people use that, they use it as in they're saying everything has no meaning, which is hard to use because that's not true. But if you say nothing has meaning, then you can say, in essence, everything, you can say, in essence, that I don't want anything other than this idea of something that doesn't exist. And you can therefore justify a fantasy. And yeah, that's really deep in the weeds with the words. But do you think that generally accepted phrases that cause people so much turmoil would be causing them so much turmoil if there wasn't other things that these phrases allowed people to say under the surface? Because when I say nothing has meaning, I literally justify to myself inaction. I don't have to do anything because nothing has meaning. Who cares about the semantics of that? That is a verbal, written permission to myself to lollygag for the sake of fantasy. If I say I don't want to do anything because nothing has meaning anyways, it's not like I'm going to go do nothing. I'm probably going to fantasize. Because if I say nothing has meaning, I'm comparing nothing to everything. People very often conflate meaning with certainty. Why do people want to know the meaning of life? Because they want certainty. They think if there was some written meaning to life, they would be able to go run around and do that thing, and it would bring them every single satisfaction that life could offer, even though we know that not to be the case. Certainty is a fantasy, but here's the catch. Nothing can be certain. Nothing can be certain. Nothing is certain. The only things that are certain are the things that we can't prove or disprove. Fantasy. If I say, I'm not going to do it because nothing has meaning, that means I am going to avoid doing something so I can fantasize about the things that are certain. This is like spiritual gooning. Do you understand how absurd this is to me, personally? Because first of all, you're just generally accepted to be a loser if you say that nothing has meaning. Because you're not, you could be blind and still find meaning in things. The problem is you're looking for it. You're looking for meaning. Meaning is contingent on wanting. If you want meaning, you can't get it. Because you can't do anything that you can't do anything that manufacture. You can't do anything to get meaning besides stating it. Because meaning comes after the thing that you do. You can't do meaning. So the only thing that you're left to do, and this may sound absurd word games, but if we follow that logic, the only thing that you can do if you pursue meaning, trying to find meaning in life, you have to complete some sort of gratification towards finding meaning, which is declaring it. And to do that, you have to declare meaning to be something that can't be disproven. What is the only thing that is certain? Nothing. And also death. Death is fairly certain depending on who you ask. So, what do you get? You get people that fantasize about things that don't exist. You get people that wait to die for something that doesn't exist. That's following the logic. I'm sorry, but if you think following the logic gets you to life is meaningless, you fucked up somewhere. Because the equation doesn't end. But if I go back and check your fucking work, I can use logic pretty efficiently to figure out where you went wrong. There is no second interpretation to this mode of thought because it goes somewhere that is certain. And the only way to get somewhere that is certain is to at some point fantasize about something that doesn't exist. If you're trying to figure out what to do in life, if you just want general directions, save yourself a huge fucking headache and just never ask the question, what is the meaning of life? Just say that it's a stupid question and go do something. Literally anything. These are weighty abstractions to be dealing with. Most people don't really even understand what meaning itself means before they ask what is the meaning of life, and they don't bother to learn it before they brand life as meaningless. And also, let's just say this. If you see life as meaningless, it reflects terribly on you. It just means that there is nothing that you want to do for yourself or others. Because if you wanted to help anyone, including yourself, there would be meaning to many, 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 many things in life. Nothing that you have to lose. Nothing that you want to do. Nothing that you're willing to work for. Please, I really hope you listen to those statements as if, the concept of nothing itself. Let me rephrase that. You have a fantasy to lose. Nothing that you have to lose. Nothing that you want to do. You only want to fantasize. Nothing that you're willing to work for. You're willing to do anything to maintain a fantasy. You are willing to work for nothing. You're willing to work for something that doesn't exist. You're willing to fantasize. Nothing else. The person that brands life as meaningless is unreliable, unwilling, entitled, and impulsive. If somebody does not have desire, they do not see meaning. They're unreliable because they see their impulses as desires. Unwilling because they pursue things other than their desires. Entitled because they expect others to accept their indulgence as if it were a pursuit. Again, the pursuit of meaning, said in simple terms, is idiotic. Pursuit gives things meaning. Pursuit of anything. Most people don't want to be philosophers, so pursuing meaning will get insanely frustrating. Most people who pursue meaning in life will try to quell that frustration by assigning meaning to life by writing it off altogether. Quite literally, writing off the idea of significance. And again, this is not just something semantic. Here's an example. If you've ever said, "What's the point? There's no significance to this task," or "Who cares?" then you've written off significance itself because you had no incentive to engage in whatever was in front of you. This is how you get the perception that life is meaningless. By constantly downplaying things, solidifying that idea in your mind, being overly ironic, not trusting anything to be genuine. It's like when you process so much as fake because of some idea of certainty, of oppression and justice, where do you think that gets you to? A shitty, oppressive, dystopian world. Why do you think there's so much fucking misery porn out there? Once you understand a little bit of incentives, try really, really learning about incentives. And just the way that things work. The way that transaction works, the way that different things work over history, over long periods of time. And then try watching any movie on a utopian or dystopian society. It'll be difficult because it will just seem like such fucking nonsense. There are a few good ones. I'll give you that, but they're really hard to make. Because try making a bunch of people really miserable and subjecting them under your control and either A, not running out of them, or B, not having those people revolt. And then install safeguards against societies like that. The thing is, people aren't dropping like flies. And also, they're not incentivized to revolt. Not incentivized enough to revolt. The only way you get to a position where you think you're genuinely living in a dystopia is if it's all in your fucking head. Dystopias and utopias, they're just like the common... They're just like a rephrased heaven and hell for the modern day. Thing is, in this reality right now, those ideas can't exist. What do you get when you have something that doesn't exist? Oh, you have a fantasy. Fuck. Oh no, it looks like you willingly created a misery porn inside of your head about the way that the world works. Congratulations. If you're so convinced that that's the way that the world is, whoop-de-doo. You figured it all out. The rest of us are all slaves and monkeys. Congratulations. Except you're going to be the only one living in chains under that system. The rest of us who don't acknowledge it are the ones who can go out and actually afford a house. The ones that can actually go out and get a job in this terrible job market, in this terrible economy. Yeah, it's bad. Compared to historical shit. Okay? But they're still there. There's still houses. There's still jobs. Get your fucking ass in gear or wait to get out of the gene pool like Misery McGee over here. What, you think complaining will get you a fucking house and a wife and kids? No. That's what your wife's job is. That's her job. That's what gets her jewelry. Okay? You can't do the same thing. Somebody still has to buy the jewelry. And if you don't have a rich husband, you're going to have to become one. Sorry, buddy. You could swap out jewelry for bread, for livestock, for land, for nobility. Who cares? It's been the same forever. Just the difficulty has gone up and down like a stock market trend. Guess what causes it to level the fuck back out? People like you giving up. Thank you. Very cool. But guess what? If you didn't give up, which is unrealistic, if you actually tried, at the same level, you know what? Life might get a little bit more competitive, but for everybody, it would get better. Antinatalists are so fucking weird, man. Like, they're like, oh, my parents brought more misery into the world by creating me. It's like, no, they created you, and you decided to bring misery into the world. That one's your fault. They gave you the choice. You fucked up. You can't blame them for that one. All right, so, yeah, anyways, back to it. What is the meaning of life is a stupid question. Okay, you ask, okay, but what's the better question? There might not be one. But here's one to try on for size. Ask this. What can I do today for myself tomorrow? Anyone can think of something that they like to do today. But it's much harder to figure out something you can do which will make tomorrow better. More so if you're figuring out what you can do today so that you can do something tomorrow, so that you can do something further off in the future. The further out the goal, the longer you stick to it, the greater the magnitude, the more you will see meaning in things, the more that you will have a reason to wake up, the more of a reason you will have to live. There's no purpose. There's no purpose to living if there's nothing you want to do. But if you're stressing about the meaning of life to the point where you say, fuck it, life has no meaning, now I just want to wait till die, you're clearly looking for something that you want to do. Meaning, as a concept, or the lack of it, if we go back to that chicken laid from an egg example, right? The 3-step process, chicken, egg, chicken, but we cut out the first chicken, which is ourselves, our responsibility. The meaning, the lack of meaning, is the second chicken of our own negligence, right? No desire, that's us. Inaction, that's the egg. Lack of meaning, that's the other chicken. If we cut out our part in it, we assume that we're not acting because of a lack of meaning, and then we have no desire for that same reason. It's just stupid, gay, idiot logic. Stop worrying about meaning. Stop looking for it. It's distracting you from living.
Yeah, it's just not realistic to have life be simple. But life has definitely become more simple in a positive way once I realized that life is meaningless and random and nothing that happens is meant to be.
Meaning, what was meant to be, what was meant by this, what is the meaning of this, what did he mean, is this meaningful, what does that mean? What are you trying to say? That's the oh my god. What does he mean by this? What does he mean by this? He means to tell us. He means to tell us that there is no meaning. Nothing was meant to be. If I look at this video and I say, what did he mean by that? And I get to say, nothing. You meant nothing by it? Because everything is meaningless? You didn't mean to say that? Do you mean to tell us that nothing has meaning? And expect us to think that that means anything? When the only thing that means anything is nothing. Nothing means anything. You just said so. If nothing means anything, then anything can have meaning. I really, really wonder why is he making this video? What compelled him to make this video? What is the significance of this video? What is the meaning? What could possibly be the intentions of somebody making a video like this? Genuine, actual intentions. What are the incentives for this? The crazy part is we went over that. But every single time we come back, loop around, it starts hurting my brain again. It does. It really does. I can ask, like, why does he do this? And the incentives are there. There's 1,000,001 reasons. It could apply. He could apply the incentives in 1,000 different manners, and every single one of them would make sense. Somebody who goes through life
thinking that they were promised something, expecting anything from it, and then does not go to the effort to see those things through themselves because there's some expectation that the expectations will be fulfilled by somebody else. That kind of person will land themselves in a situation where everything seems meaningless. There's incentives. The realization of some grand promise. It keeps paying dividends as long as you're at a point in your life where you can expect to receive something from somebody else. But once you no longer can, once that illusion is shattered, you're left in a place where you can't expect anything from anyone, and you goddamn know it. And then it's a tragedy. You can't do anything about it. I mean, there's some there's like a perception that anybody in their 40s can no longer do anything with their life if they haven't done it already. It's like the ages of 40 to 60 are designated for working for retirement. And if you haven't landed your job already, you're fucked. There are so many older people, Gen X, boomers, millennials, they just whine and whine and whine and bitch and moan and do fucking nothing with their lives. These older people who will look down on you and spoon feed you the most nihilistic bullshit you ever done heard in your lifetime. Every single one of them thinks that they grew up in the last great era. Every single one of them thinks that it's only getting worse. Every single time this repeats itself. This is a pattern in history that that we'll need to cope with, basically. It's not something that we can really avoid if we're being completely honest, because it's such a time-tested, tried-and-true method of coping that good luck replacing it. Good luck convincing these folks that anything else will work. But do not trust any older person that is just a negative Nancy. Don't trust them. This is actual advice. I don't care if they're successful. I don't care if they have a good job. I don't care if they have a house. If they're bitching and moaning, if they're complaining about things, don't trust them. The craziest part is that he said, "Oh, life can't be simple," but it definitely became more simple in a positive way once I realized that life is random and meaningless. That's another thing. They'll always try to spin it as if they have the positive outlook. This is the most insane. That's the craziest cope there is. The gaslighting is astronomical. I'm the one being positive. Your life has no meaning. You should wait to die. I'm the positive one. Always and forever. You ever notice that phenomenon? Where somebody goes out of their way to tell you how positive they are. How nice they are. They have like a live, laugh, love sticker on their refrigerator. Or one of those fake art print things that with the same slogan on their wall. And they're just the most passive-aggressive little bitch. These are the same people that run HOAs. And put like those little metal bumps on park benches so kids can't rail grind on them or whatever. Or put up no loitering signs literally fucking everywhere. And then complain about why kids aren't going outside. And they shut down every single place and make it hostile as shit and say, live, laugh, love. This is the kind of person that would probably call the cops on you for taking a hatchet while hiking and trying to start a campfire. This is the kind of person that thinks if you kill bugs on purpose, you're a psychopath. This is the kind of person that will spend $12,000 on their animals' medical bills so they can extend its life by 3 months, while it's just shitting itself and internally hemorrhaging and in agony, refusing to give it morphine because that's unnatural. No, we just have to let it play out naturally. People that have zero conception of how things work, their only point of reference is, what can I be doing in this situation to make myself look like I'm a better person? Say what you will about the political spectrum, but a good point of reference is, I mean, both sides have this type of individual that's like frothing at the mouth, like genuinely tweaking 24/7 at the other side, just being like, holy fucking shit, the world is so awful because of these people. We need to do something about them. Wink, 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 wink. I am such a good person. Everything that I believe is true. And I can't believe that not every single person thinks exactly like I do. Just put me in charge. Put me in charge. I'd fix it all. Please put me in charge. Do it, please, now. Put me in charge. It's so... There's suppressing the freedom of speech. It's this and that. It's, oh my God, everything's crumbling. The dictators are in place. The world is imploding. We need more control. We need less control. A government oversight. Step down, please. We send bombs to this place that I hate, and these people that are doing the same thing, they're genocidal and evil, and maybe even it's a genocide if they're not even doing anything, but they're making laws that negatively affect my chosen group of choice. It's preference. It's one ideology going into place. There's no such things as checks and balances anymore. It doesn't matter that we did the same thing the last term. It's this time it's different. It's really different. No, my leader's not a pedophile. Your politician's a pedophile. Let's selectively release the information on child predators because I only want to prove that your politicians are pedophiles. I don't care about mine. You are all such terrible, terrible people. Oh my gosh, if only the world could see how much of a miserable shitbag you are. I'm gonna pull up your old Twitter posts. I'm going to conflate it with everything that you said. If you're not consistent for your entire lifespan, then you're not human. Everything that I say is completely and factually true. Look, I have statistics to back it up. Everybody has statistics. Everybody has statistics to back their shit up. It means nothing in terms of politics. And yet the yapping, the blabber, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on about how good they are. They just first need to rage and froth and foam and just have a seizure and gestate all over the floor until they get their way. Everybody has that type of person. Every group has that type of person. It is not unique to anybody. These miserable assholes that make everyone look like miserable assholes. While these two representatives, quote unquote, are just slapboxing up in front of everybody, and we take our retard for granted. We downplay it, and the other guy's retard, we're like, oh my gosh, look how much of a retard is, while the other side is doing the exact same thing, and we will absolutely not admit our own flaws. But the best part about it is that everybody in the in-group is so nice and wholesome. It does not matter how many casualties overseas due to our voting patterns. It doesn't matter how many of those there are. Who cares? We're the good guys. We're doing it for a good reason. They're the bad guys. They're doing it for a bad reason. They want profit. They're greedy. Do you know which side says that? Both of them. Every accusation levied against anybody can apply to the guy in the next group, if only by association. Access to data, access to statistics. Anything can be conflated with anything. I can go onto the internet right now and find statistics to prove any insane opinion that I want to prove. I could probably find court documents that I could not even modify, just interpret in a manner that would prove that Obama is related to the Lorax. The amount of rigor needed to put these cases together to make yourself out to be the good guy is astronomically mediocre at best. Anybody can do it. Prove whatever you want. Or, who cares about the words? Just do something. Do something that makes you feel good about your life. What if nobody actually gives a shit about the statistics? Everybody has those statistics. All of them are correct in some manner. Even the scientific manner of evaluating statistics is in some ways biased because you can just collect statistics in a manner that would support your own belief through the scientific interpretation of the data. Scientists are very likely to be the most biased people on the planet. Very few scientists are going out there to discover anything. Most of them are going out there to prove something. You don't impartially collect data. You don't assemble data with an unbiased eye. It's impossible. Anybody that claims to be unbiased, to be seeking the truth, those are the ones that are going to be the most likely to be lying. If somebody admits their bias, you can then interpret the data in a way that shows you exactly where the line shifts. But if you have to guess at their bias first, there's almost no way you're going to get accurate data. Admit where you're biased. Nobody's good, nobody's evil. We are good to the things that we appreciate, and we are evil to the things that we don't. If you appreciate death, the idea of what comes after death, you will not revere life. You will not think it to be a sacred thing. Only in so much as it's a vessel to get where you want to be. Jihadists don't kill because they want to ensure that life becomes better. They kill because they want to ensure that death becomes better. That they secure their place in the afterlife. But there has to be a sacrifice for that. If you're death obsessed, you have to sacrifice life in some manner to gain the benefits of death. If you perceive the best parts of life to be the parts that come after it, you will perceive everything that occurs in life as comparably suboptimal. And you can claim to be trying to benefit everybody in life by telling them to stop living. You can do it with a straight face and dead honesty. If I believed that everybody was asleep and that the only way to wake them up was to kill them, and if I didn't do that, then they would just keep on sleeping until they actually died and nothing came after that. If I had that belief, that particular belief, I would see myself as a hero if I could press that nuclear launch button. I would see myself as the protector of life itself. It is not that difficult to get yourself in a mindset where you can justify convincing everybody that they should be dead. That's what antinatalism is. I despise antinatalists. It is the most high and mighty group of people with the longest list of excuses imaginable. I once watched a video of interviews with antinatalists, and I could watch maybe 60 seconds at a time before I'd start like fuming. Like I was fucking tweaking. And what I did was I opened up my Scrivener document that holds everything that I've written about thus far, and the statements that they would say, verbatim, every single one I had written down previously as an excuse. Not a single word that came out of these people's mouths wasn't in my document. This was the first time I had really seriously seen any sort of content relating to antinatalists. I used to think it was just a Reddit group. For the most part, it is. But when I actually heard these people speak, I cannot convey to you how shocked I was at the accuracy, the overlap between the things that I had written and the things that these people had said. Not a single thing, not a single excuse did I miss. And honestly, I want to go find that video again so I can respond to it. If you're an antinatalist watching this for some reason, you've got this, like, genuinely the stupidest set of beliefs I've ever heard of. Like, it's crazy the lengths reached to get to such an idiotic stance. Moreover, the entire belief system is doomed to fail simply because it won't be carried on through the generations. It can't be. Not unless they break their entire philosophy just to do that. You know what? I'm feeling generous. To the antinatalists out there, if you want your vision to succeed, you have to start reproducing even more than everybody else. And you have to imbue those values into your children so strongly that they do the same until you guys have the dominant view. And only then, once everybody believes this, you can all choose to sit and wait to die. That's the only way it's going to work. You're going to have to get to fucking and put in some actual work. But, I mean, I think most of these people realize the psychological damage their vision would do to children in that case. And I think that's why they choose not to have children, because they know the damage that they'll do to those children just by telling them to believe the same things that they do. Overpopulation is bullshit. There will never be enough humans in this universe. That's something I'll stand on. The more humans there are, the better. If you think exponentially increasing the amount of humans will drastically decrease the quality of the quality of life, that's insane. The more humans there are to work together, the greater the things that they can accomplish. Will it get worse for certain groups over certain time periods to a degree that we probably can't even comprehend? Yeah, 100%. But what happens when we've got a supply chain all throughout the Milky Way and we go to spread on to other galaxies? Do you realize how much life we could implant into the universe? How much suffering we could alleviate, and how much absolute consciousness could be produced by just the human species if it chose to stop caring about the occasional downturn. No, I mean, we can't stop caring. I mean, caring is what gets us out of those things. But if you look at the economy, trying to have a soft landing in economic downturns, it creates the illusion of a soft landing. And that's what we're doing psychologically with our beliefs as well. Is we'll shoot for a vision, and then as soon as the bill arrives, we try to take out loans to shove it off to the side. We create these extra splinter cell beliefs that justify our positioning and our stance. And what it really comes down to is that every now and again, there's going to be a generation that's going to have to get fucking tough. That's going to have to bite the bullet and do some things that will be regrettable to history. And there always is. Once the whiny baby motherfuckers shut the fuck up and die because they won't be reproducing anyways, and that's probably where a lot of their anger stems from, the fact that they won't have any legacy, nothing to show in the historical annals of the world. Once those people die off, that's when it starts an uptick again. Do you want to be one of those people? Because they're always the ones that are like, we're doing the right thing, and the ones that history books are like, look at these fucking retards. In very many cases, they just aren't even mentioned. And then we have an upswing in like intellectualism, and we revive all of these great ye olde ideas, enlightenment ideals. And we say, no, these people were actually correct. It doesn't matter how many millions and millions of people that their ideas ended up killing, and just the fucking misery of it all, the anti-human aspect of trying to be something more than what we are. No, not something more, something less. Humans are complex and multifaceted. To try to be good, to try to be pure, that is something for the afterlife. Not a single religion in the higher echelons of understanding try to pretend that we can be pure in this life. No. Save it for the afterlife. You will make mistakes. That's how you learn to be better. If we won't allow ourselves to learn to be better, if we don't allow mistakes in the first place, we'll never get better. Whoever said humanity was a mistake was full of shit, didn't understand what they were saying, and also said something very true. We are mistakes. We're a long list of mistakes that all think that they've got it figured out. And that's fantastic, because every single generation that is a mistake, and it is every single one of them, gets to set the next one up to not make that mistake. The next generation gets the benefit of a little bit more hindsight. And the next generation after that gets the same thing. And we might have a little bit of hubris about it in the moment, where we always think that we can be better, but we're in a moment where we think ourselves to be so good, so high and mighty at the end of history, that those of us that are willing to see what we're doing wrong are going to be the ones that are going to be able to find the solution when it comes time that our mistakes can no longer be swept under the rug. It will not be the people that think that they're doing everything right that will be able to become better. They've already reached their zenith. They have nothing else to offer. Only the mistakes, only those of us that are mistakes will be able to become anything more. Be human. Make mistakes. Be honest about them. Your mistakes are not the fault of others. It's not due to the conditioning of your environment. Every mistake in your future will be your fault. We realize that. But then we look back on the past and we find a reason why it's somebody else's fault. Do you think we thought any differently then? Do you think when we looked at the future back then, we thought that, oh, everything bad that will happen to me will be somebody else's fault? Probably not. That's fringe cases like the ones that we're discussing, of course. But think about that. Do we sit here and say that in the future, I will be absolved of all of my transgressions against myself, because everything that will happen to me will be due to the fault of circumstance? If we say, no, nobody's perfect, we'll make mistakes. Okay, then look at your past the same way and take responsibility for everything that's happened. Take responsibility just for being in those circumstances. I don't care what you did. I don't care what you tried. I don't care what you intended. What happened? What can you do differently next time? He's right. Nothing that happens is meant to be. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? Look, there's me removing the significance from what he's saying. Look, I realized it. I saw it. I did it. Self-awareness. I'll be honest about that. You care, obviously. Okay. And we have to acknowledge that so we can go forward and, whatever. Let's say nothing was meant to be. What does that mean? Because everything in the past has significance. Everything that happened got you to where you are. Everything is significant, if only because of that. Does that mean it was meant to happen? No. You could have changed things. You could have made them come out differently. But now you're here. And the significance of that is that in knowing what you could have changed, now you know a little bit more about what you can change going forward. Nothing was meant to be. Quite literally, nothing was meant to be. That's what you're stuck on acknowledging. Things that don't exist, something that doesn't exist, a concept, a void is meant to be. When he says nothing is meant to be, he literally means it. The fantasy was meant to be. Death is meant to be. Only the things that are certain are meant to be. Which is ironic. You go from random to certainty. It's full circle. It always comes full circle. Everything that I say that other people are doing poorly, I'm doing wrong also. But what's the outcome of that? What's the outcome of that? That's what matters. Because everything that we say, every value that we say that we hold, we will transgress at some point. We will violate it. But will we cling to the illusion that we're still doing what we say that we're doing? Or will we acknowledge that? And will we continue to live? Because why not? Again, who cares? Consider that. Look at whatever you're doing. Look at whatever you think. And ask yourself, who cares? Genuinely. Who does care? Because if you believe the way that this guy does, if you think the things that he thinks, life is random and meaningless. You say, who cares? I could tell you who cares. It's the people who think that life is random and meaningless. Are those the kind of people that you want to care about you? Because to you, because to them, you're random and meaningless. You become random and meaningless in the eyes of the people that you will surround yourself with. The only people that you can surround yourself with for an extended period of time are the ones that will devalue you and your actions. Because you need your actions to mean random things. Because otherwise you're responsible for everything that happens to you. Because otherwise you are responsible for not being able to see the meaning in life. Who cares? I care deeply about this, all of this situation. This man, the dead man, this individual even in this video that we're vaguely responding to. I care. But what is that? Where does that get us? Really? Because all I'm really doing is giving this guy some form of beating for my own entertainment. It might be novel for a little while. This will be novel for a little while. Oh, let's make fun of the people that think that life is random and meaningless. Yeah, yippee, we haven't done that in a minute. But guess what? Once it becomes normalized, once it becomes a common thing to do, it will no longer be novel. It won't give relief to the people that care about life. At some point, it's going to be mean. It's going to be gross. Are we ready for that? Because it will happen. We'll get to another turning point. At some point, we'll sing the praises of the universe for a little bit too long, and then the release will be in the other direction. To stop caring so much. To see life as meaningless. To just take a fucking break, man. And I see that coming. There's a huge shift that has to happen first, but like people are going to get out of this irony, and they're going to live. The genuineness will become popular for a little while again, but then the tides will shift. What happens then? We be honest about it. Let's be honest. Let's be honest about where this will go, where this will lead. I can see the utility in what I'm doing right now to expedite that shift a little bit in a few people. But at some point, if I'm not honest about what I'm doing, this will become detrimental to what I'm trying to do. Don't be surprised if every single one of my beliefs shift due to the context. It has to. They have to. because I know what my intentions are. I want people to keep living. Right now, I think we need to care a little bit more. But at some point, we're going to have to care a little bit less. Never let yourself stand still. Every generation does this. They get what they want and then they stop moving. Liberals become conservatives. Conservatives become liberals. Democrats become Republicans. Republicans become Democrats. Back and forth it goes. Because what was useful once is no longer now. It happens. It will happen. Let's just throw in a Bruce Lee quote. This is probably one of the only quotes my dad actually knew. And I'm so glad he used to repeat it all the time, even if it was a bit annoying. Be like water, my friend. Be like water. Water flow. It form. It fit. Be like water. Be like water. Never stand still. Never stop moving. Sharks drown if they stop swimming. That's what happens to us with our ideological beliefs. If we value what we stand on, we're going to have to stand on something else that means the same thing in a new context, in a new world, once it starts rotting. Are we ready to do that? The tree grows, the walnut falls. It plants itself and grows new roots. That tree will stand sturdy, but do we want to remain there while it decays? Or will we move on to greener pastures, remaining the same as we were, but becoming who we are? As soon as we stand still, we die. As soon as our minds stop moving forward, our body will walk on without us. It will become a vessel of memories, a thing of habit, and the dead man marches on.
You know, ever since then, I realized that, okay, you know what? Life is something that no one has any control over, and no one can have any control over life, because life is above humanity. And, you know, humans are not more powerful. Humans are not powerful enough.
You may be asking, did I think my life would turn out like this? No. But, this is what we're working with. Yeah. Subscribe.